Tickle us, do we not laugh? Prick us, do we not bleed? Wrong us, shall we not revenge?
Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Adequate. Our ongoing mission, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, to review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence, to seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable, to boldly go where many other Star Trek-based YouTube shows have gone before. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, sticky and hot and cold people alike, and welcome to a live episode of Trekking Up North.
What's a live episode? I we haven't done one in so long.
Because we look so dead every week. I am your host, Captain Goodwill of the U.S.S. Adequate. Joining me, as ever, is the delectable Geesian from the planet Science Officer Synoiz.
Hello, I am a moist egg.
I'm
a shiny egg.
Speaking of hot and sticky,
sit on my head. What will hatch? Anyway.
Speaking of hot and sticky and sitting on someone's head, you may notice there's another gentleman in Monster Maroon in the centre, forming a delicious imperialist sandwich this week. We are representing all the colonies.
We literally just had a discussion about like how David gets all these like sexual comments, and we're just like, let's just make it worse. Let's just go there immediately.
From the country of nice France, aka Canada, David Jones. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, David. How are you?
Hot. Tired. How are you?
Pleased but sticky.
Wow, did you know that that's the best review I've ever had, Goodwill?
I thought it was the only review we've ever had.
Well, you know, I love how we're going, oh, it's so warm, it's so uncomfortable, and then like David's probably like, it's literally that bit in Terminator 2 where you know the nuke goes off in Canada. That's what I feel like here. I've got really shit curtains that aren't blocking out the sun at all, so it looks like I should have a chain link fence here, so I can be like, and just turn into a skeleton during the episode.
So for just £2 a month, you could help Synoiz get better curtains. So he is deflecting the heat of 1,000 suns.
There is no point of this curtain. Like, it's literally the idea of this, like, it doesn't block anything out.
You are missing the point. You live in Sunderland. It is literally in the name. You are on the Sunderland. So get used to it. How are you, gentlemen, apart from being hot and sticky this week? Cool. Moving on. We are.
David's like, I was fully prepared for the "how are you" question, but not one phrased like that.
David has been a very, very busy boy over the last few months since his first appearance on Trekking Up North, all the way back in January of this year, when I was a lot less fat and a lot less hairy. And Graham looked ravishing as ever.
I was just the same. I haven't changed. I think I've melted slightly. I think my face is getting saggier by the day, to be fair. I'm gonna sellotape it up later.
Sunderland. David's been on a rather popular Amazon Prime show lately. Do you want to give a little plug for that, David?
I wonder what show that's been. A certain villain called Homelander in season 4 of The Boys on Amazon Prime. You can see me as a cockroach politician. Homelander called me, and then you can see me as a police officer, like always, of course, in the rest of this in episodes 2 and 3 of The Boys.
So, as well as being in Thanksgiving, as well as
and
being
Trap.
in Star Trek, and as well as being
Trap
in
in theaters August 2nd.
Yeah, and Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. This boy is invading all the nerdy franchises. And
I
all
love
the
it.
genres
You're
that
living
nerdy
the
love.
dream, David.
You
You're living the
really
nerdy
are.
dream of being like, I was that. And giving the rest of us that whole Leonardo DiCaprio moment where we're literally just sitting in front of the television being like, there he was. I got him.
I know.
And then we cross it off the chart. We cross it off the David bingo card.
The David bingo card.
We're gonna have to make this at some point. When you've got like a few more things under your belt, we'll be like, cool, now we can do a bingo card. And be like, right, everyone, you have to watch these shows and fill the bingo card in.
Is that? Are you suggesting some sort of quiz, Synoiz?
Oh,
Because
no. I went
because
straight into the plug.
like the smoothest of segues. I don't even know if I've got the audio set up for this, so bear with me. Yes, I did. Fantastic. Tomorrow night at Geek Retreat in Sunderland, it is the first ever official Nerdy Up North quiz, hosted by local drag queen, the Velvet Snatcher.
Oh,
Can everyone
hello
hear me?
there.
Can you just hear me now? Can everyone
Hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, can everyone hear me now? There we go. Was there a slight technical issue? Let me just double check. Yes,
No,
it's
we
working.
could hear you, but
There was a
I don't know
slight
if they heard
there
you.
was a slight technical issue. OBS was just like, I can't hear you, but everyone else was like, I can. Yes, tomorrow night in Sunderland at Geek Retreat, 5 a.m. until whenever
5 a.m.
5 a.m. till
5
whenever we
p.m..
do. No, it's
5
5 a.m. I'm committed to it now. It's 5. We like to start early and finish
It's
early.
just Beth sitting there being like, I'll give it another 20 minutes.
The shutters roll up and Beth is there with a pen and card. Where have you
I like
been?
it. That's the dedicated fans we need. That's it. You know,
5 p.m. 5 p.m. and I know it says 8 p.m. But I think it's going to be a lock-in, to be honest with you, depending on when it finishes. But 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. tomorrow night at Geek Retreat in Sunderland. It's the first ever official Nerdy Up North quiz, and we are raising money for local charities, the Charlie and Carter Foundation and Pride Action North, as part of MX Drag Great Britain 2024. And I'm going to say this, Science Officer Synoiz, that host looks hauntingly familiar.
I just think, I've got no problem with drag queens as long as they don't read to our children, because the last thing I want is my child to be educated. Okay? I spent an hour, putting knitting needles in his ears, and the idea that he can still hear a drag queen reading stories to him is shocking. And that one can't even grow hair. So it's just not on. It's just not on, really.
Oh, what's that? Demonetized.
Demonetized. I've done it. I've done it again. That's my bingo card, David. We've got you and your appearances. My bingo card is watching all of the Nerdy Up North podcasts episodes I've been on, and then being like, which one's got demonetized? Was it this one?
But if you live in the northeast of England, make sure that you can get there. It's £2 a head to join in on the quiz. There is a lot of deliciously unhinged prizes on offer.
I'm hoping a Hydra turns up, because I'll make a fucking fortune.
There's the Hydra.
I'll be like, what?
Delighted
10
quid.
heads? That'll be 20 quid, you bastard. But
Hello, what's your name? Medusa.
That's
Should have cut your hair, you silly cow.
got them with charity semantics. But no, it
Yeah.
should be really fun. Like it's the sort of thing of if you are in the Northeast, please come to it because it allows us to gauge like the interest in doing these again. Because the fact is, we'd love to do these. Like so, this this one and the next like hopefully two that we're gonna do are for my fundraising campaign as part of Mixed Drag Great Britain. But if they're successful, then we can hopefully make them into a monthly thing. And what we've been talking about is basically like picking a charity every month, so we can basically spread the love between different things and be like, hey, cool, who are we going to support this time? Because, like Paul's been saying, we need to give something back to the community, I think, like the wider community. And also we need to fundraise to get him and Sammy to bloody the Horror Nights in LA, is it? Where is it?
They are content with being hot and sticky for the rest of their lives, so they want to go to Florida.
Florida, there we go.
The land of hot and sticky. Don't know why. I suspect Paul is a closeted Florida man. So don't be surprised if they do go there where you see a man with a Mike Wazowski tattoo running around in flip-flops and nothing else. I
told you I'd take my top off.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Paul.
I'm just warm. But yeah, I coined it "Go Nund Me." Basically, deport Paul. Because it's time. The plane.
Well, we decided if we all go over there, then technically Beth's in charge.
Listen,
so we're just like,
there is a plane.
We'll come back and we were like, why is everything on fire? Why are there angry baboons everywhere? We didn't even start with angry baboons.
I'll do you all a deal. Don't vote Conservative because
fuck the Tories.
But there is a plane bound for Rwanda waiting. All we have to do is change the course. That is it. We won't be deported to Africa. We'll be deported to Florida, which I think is
hold on. I think this might be the worst film idea in the entire history of film.
It's like Con Air with podcasters.
We hijack a plane meant for Rwanda purely to get Paul to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando.
It's non-air. It's non-air. That's what it is. Gets off the plane with a bunny. Put the bunny down.
Nicolas Cage from Con Air, but played by Paul with like the wavy hair and everything. Oh, Bagsy, do I get to be the Nancy Steve Buscemi? That's what I do.
Buscemi, not Buscemi.
I don't know. I've never until this moment ever said it out loud. I've always just said.
How's it going,
fellow kids? Then, yeah, Nancy Buscemi.
Is that why he's a nod? Because he says, "How's it going, fellow kids?" Is that
David, have you forgotten why we're here as well?
Good.
But yeah, that was our first promo. No. That was our first promo. But yeah, if you're in the northeast of England and you're free tomorrow, Saturday the 29th? Yeah,
29th.
Saturday the 29th, please come along to Geek Retreat in Sunderland and take part in our nerdy quiz. There is a one-of-a-kind prize to be won, and also the winner will get the pick of the raffle prizes. So to make sure that they get something that they want, basically.
It's a new car air freshener. There is
there is actually an air freshener. That is actually the booby prize. I'm gonna have to throw it in with something else. I can't just be like, "Hey, you won an air freshener." So yes, it's going to get tied into something else.
I'm very much looking forward to Beth winning a car air freshener for the car that she does not have. New car smell. What's that? But yes, that is tomorrow night, 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. at Geek Retreat in Sunderland. But that is not all for the teasers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, and Synoiz. For I myself have a teaser. Would you like to see it? Yes. Good, because I'm going to play it anyway right now. The search for Trek! That is right, I have gone into business for myself.
That's it. You finally cut off the chaff and decided to do something worthwhile.
This is a brand new series that I am part of, that I've been working with producer and all-around god of the Shuttlepod show, Mark Cartier, for the better part of a year. We are excited to announce the upcoming release of our new show, The Search for Trek. What is The Search for Trek? It is about the journey.
Shouldn't we have asked that question?
No, it's not in the script.
What is The Search for Trek, Goodwill? Tell me, please.
Thank you for asking, Synoiz, despite the fact I didn't prompt you to. The Search for Trek is the search for what Star Trek means to all of us. It is about the journey to find out exactly what Star Trek means on every single level. Each week, we are given a topic by whoever decided to give a topic, or whoever had a good topic, or if it was AI. I don't know. It's brand new to me. And every week we have to choose a film or episode of Star Trek which best represents that specific topic to us. But here's the catch. We must reference this episode or movie, and then we can never reference it ever again throughout the series. So your choices have to be very careful and very thought out, because if you choose it for one topic and then a better topic comes along which most resembles that film or episode, you're screwed. So the first episode is fun. What's fun? Tune in when we announce.
We don't know here.
We don't know, but tune in when more details come in. Well, I'm going to be announcing more details soon, but July the 11th, episode 1, fun. But stay tuned to Twitter. Stay tuned to the Shuttlepod Show, the Shuttlepod Show's Twitter. There might be a search for Trek Twitter coming out as well, so just look for that. But just hang around me and I will promote it as and when. But that is the teaser for The Search for Trek, and that is not even all the shows I'm working on right now. But I'm not telling you the rest.
There's so much you're doing, man.
I'm not telling.
Congrats.
I'm not telling anyone about the other shows. All I'm saying is I'm going to be wearing a spoon. Right. We are here. Fill the spoon, Doctor. We are here to review one of the greatest Star Trek movies of all time. It was a generation's last adventure. It was steeped in Cold War allegory. It is beautifully directed, beautifully edited, beautifully scored.
And choreographed.
Choreographed, yes.
Those
Kirk's
dance
dancing.
scenes.
Springtime for Ducat and Cardassia. It is one of my favourite films of all time. We are here to review Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And I am really, really interested in tonight's episode because this is Synoiz's first time watching Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And holy shit, guys.
Wow.
I just want to go around the room and just firstly get your overall opinion of this movie. So we will start with our esteemed heartthrob, Mr. David Jones, right here, and just get his opinion on what he thinks of The Undiscovered Country.
On the end of an era, this is their last movie. What a hell of a finale they did. Hands down, one of the greatest pieces of Star Trek we've ever seen. And just perfect. I'd give this movie a 10 out of 10.
Ooh, Synoiz.
I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I will say it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite of the movies that we've seen so far, but I really liked it. I think this does the best balancing act between all of the tones set from the films thus far. And I think that's what we need to applaud it on, because you have the hilarious silliness of hilarious silliness of 4 and 5, the sort of the dramaticism of 2, and the whatever one did. And I just love the idea of like this one where you just go, wow, it actually manages to bring it all together and actually works. It's a brilliant, brilliant movie, and I get why people love it so much.
For me, this represents Star Trek at its very best, tonally, visually, and in a storytelling way. It's not about space exploration. It's about exploration of self and of your beliefs and examining your long-held prejudices. We see our beloved crew, which was like 20, we'd seen them for 25, 27 years up until this point, with their prejudices exposed, and we see how they deal with them throughout the movie. Nicholas Meyer directed the movie, although he didn't know he was going to, because there was a whole hoo-ha between Nimoy and Shatner in the background.
Didn't he write it, and that's why they were like, okay, direct it as well?
Yes, he wrote it because Meyer wrote a screenplay for The Wrath of Khan in 12 days. So what's insane? What's insane is the Undiscovered Country very nearly did not get made at all due to the absolute dismal performance of Star Trek V. So they were very apprehensive about making another movie so soon after. And also, this was not even the original story for Star Trek VI, because it was going to be about Starfleet Academy. It was going to be a Harve Bennett movie about Starfleet Academy, how McCoy is regaling the tale about how he met Kirk and Spock at Starfleet Academy and the adventures that they went on. However, Harve Bennett was let go from...
terrible.
Harve Bennett was let go from Paramount. He was let go from Paramount. A lot of people believe it's because of the pitch for Starfleet Academy, but a lot of people also believe that basically Paramount wanted to go in a different direction in terms of movies and what type of story they wanted. They offered him the chance to do Star Trek 6, and he just went, no, I'd rather do Starfleet Academy, and walked away. But it was a blessing in disguise.
I like that you phrase it as let go. Like, rather than like fired or something, it's like let go. That's like leaving the door open and being scared the dog will escape. It's like they sort of kept the door of Paramount open and he just ran out into traffic or something. But
there was a lot of deliberation about what Star Trek 6 would be, and basically they came up with what happens if Chernobyl happened in space. And it led from there, because this is essentially what we see here is the collapse of the Soviet Union dressed up as the Klingon Empire. We get a major tragedy accident that happens in Klingon space. They say there was an incident, they can contain it, it is absolutely fine, and then it very quickly becomes apparent that, guys,
there's no planet left. They're like, it's fine. You're like,
three-quarters of the moon is missing, the ozone layer on Cronus is depleting, they are going to have no resources within 50 years, and basically this is not an extinction level event, but the civilization, the empire is collapsing, and they have to bite the bullet and accept help. So this is very much a parallel of the Chernobyl incident and the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union, which then went into the Russian Federation, I believe.
It was.
I think so.
I don't know. It was whatever Gorbachev made it.
So Star Trek 6 is very much an allegory of the situation of the time, which for Star Trek is Star Trek has always been relevant to what's going on at the time, and this was right on the button of the social psyche.
But Goodwill, Star Trek has never been political before. When did Star Trek get woke?
September 1966. So the basic synopsis is of Star Trek 6, a tragedy in Klingon space leaves the Klingon Empire with 50 years of life left to it, and it is up to the Federation to extend an olive branch and help and work with the Klingon Empire to ensure its survival. There is only one tagline for this movie as well. I'm very fond of our dear Sammy when she goes on about her taglines. So literally the only tagline for Star Trek 6 is, "The battle for peace has begun." That's it.
I like it.
This is...
Yeah, it's good.
Straight off the bat, after the musical introduction, after the cold open credits, straight off the bat, we have the explosion of the Klingon moon Praxis. And it's just it's straight. Can you imagine being in the cinema at the time and having that massive musical crescendo end, and then just boom, that massive Dolby surround explosion hitting you?
Yeah.
It's just the way that this is all done, where we see Captain Hikaru Sulu of the U.S.S. Excelsior. Finally, yeah.
Finally.
Captain Sulu of the Excelsior, and they encounter the shockwave. They get literally beaten by this wave, and they eventually find out that the shockwave came from the Klingon moon Praxis. And what I love is I don't know what his rank, I don't know what his role is, but it's like the sensor officer, where like Sulu's like, "Don't tell me that was no meteor, like meteor shower or something like that." And like, it originated from this is Praxis, is a Klingon moon, and it's just like, I can confirm the location of Praxis, but I cannot confirm the existence of Praxis. And then you just see like 3/4 of a planet just hanging there, like absolutely wrecked. But it's just so... Watching this back after knowing more about the Chernobyl incident, and especially after the fantastic HBO series from 2018, Chernobyl, it mirrors it so well, where the Russians, the Soviets did not declare that there'd been an incident until the American satellites detected this huge like explosion and plume of radiation, and then they just went, "There has been an incident." And like Sulu just mirrors what the Americans must have said, where he just goes, "An incident?"
I love it that way. He's like, "Are you kidding?" He's just like, "What?"
Yeah. But straight off the bat, they refute. Like, bear in mind, this is the Klingon moon orbiting Kronos, so that explosion would have devastated the Klingon homeworld, and they're just like, "We don't need help." And it just parallels the Chernobyl incident from '86 so much.
And I think it's wonderful, the idea of like being able to do that. Like Trek allows them to take sort of real world events and go, how would our characters and races do that? And then telling a very sort of, like you say, a story that parallels real life in this one, by the idea of sometimes that's what you need, what needs to happen in order to actually make people go, do we really want to be spending money on this or this war when effectively this could happen? Like, and I quite like that this is what it takes to make the Klingons go, let's actually just focus on priorities.
It's a cataclysm event for the Klingon Empire, where their key energy production facility has been destroyed. Their home world has 50 years of life left to it without help. They need to do something, because the status quo, which is a neutral zone between the Federation and the Klingons, and untold hostilities, which we see through the original series, we see through the movies and Discovery, Strange New Worlds, blah blah blah. That can no longer be, because they do not have the resources or the budget to continue this, so they need to refocus their efforts.
One thing I'll say, do we ever find out specifically why Praxis exploded? Like, was it actually a terrorist attack, or was it just a mistake?
No.
Ironically, like Chernobyl, poor safety measures, overmining, but very, very much poor safety measures, which triggered a catastrophic event.
Klingons without a firm grasp of health and safety.
Have you ever seen
This seems a bit unlikely.
Have you ever seen a Klingon in a hard hat? I know that sounds like a Frozen song. Have you ever seen a Klingon in a hard hat? Can you imagine being the health and safety officer for a Klingon ship?
He'd just be like, okay, this guy is trying to fix something using a batleth. You know, this person is on fire.
But yeah, so I love the fact that Janice Rand, Yeoman Rand, from the original series, who's been in a couple of the movies. Do we report this to Starfleet? Is Sulu's just like, are you kidding?
Yeah. Imagine if we're like, no, let's just keep stum about it. But I'm annoyed that we have so many lovely cameos in this, and none of them really kind of get to shine. Like we're like, yay, we finally got Rand back for like a second. She's in like two shots, I think.
To be fair,
and it's such a shame, but it's nice to have her there, you know.
To be fair though, they do justice for Rand in the Voyager episode that we reviewed.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So she gets more of a role. I was talking to Mr. Heartthrob here before we went on air because I was basically saying that the scene where we see the meeting with the CNC, the crew of the Enterprise at Starfleet headquarters, there was a substantial scene, not deleted, but there was a major planned scene before that where we see that the crew have already retired and they are doing their own separate roles and they are mustered back into service. Like the reserve activation clause musters them back into service for this one last mission. And
McCoy's like, not again.
What I want to get you
bones.
one of them is quite a cliche, and you'll know when I get to it, but I want to read a few of them out, okay? Well, not read, but I'll tell you a few of them. So, the crew have gone their separate ways. Dr. McCoy is pissed as a fart at a medical conference. Hikaru Sulu is not a captain, but he's driving a cab in a busy metropolitan area.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Can you think of a more thankless job in a culture that doesn't have money?
Yeah. Scotty is a professor at Starfleet Academy and is currently working on fishing the HMS Bounty from the bottom of San Francisco Bay.
Okay.
Which is good. And Uhura is... I can't quite believe this. Uhura...
A dinner lady. He's a dinner lady in a primary school.
She is hosting a radio call-in show.
Okay.
Whilst Kirk is married to Carol Marcus, has his own little life in the middle of in a log cabin in the middle of the countryside. All of a sudden, there is a knock at the door. Jim, we need you back. There's been an incident. How is that not a cliche? All he needs to be doing is chopping frigging wood and just going, I'm out, Colonel.
Well, yeah, I'm literally
got
just
my
like
wife,
going,
Jim.
hang on. They were determined to shoehorn this fucking thing in, weren't they? They were like, come on, we'll do it in the next one. We'll do it in the next one.
Yeah. They've got my wife, and he's like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. I just thought
it's just the movie Commando. It's like, they took my daughter.
I liked how they did the conference though, because it's just like, the crew are so checked out at this point because Scott is just like, what was it? Maybe they're throwing us a retirement party.
The days.
Yeah, maybe they're throwing us a retirement party. Scott is just like, that suits me. I just bought a boat, and it's just yeah, same. That's what I would do if I was checking out.
I will actually say I kind of hate that different intro. I'm actually very pleased we didn't get that.
Same here.
I'm genuinely a bit like. That would be a bit shit. After all these things, you're like, Sulu is driving a cab and Uhura just does a radio show. You just said that feels like an insult, you know? Like, to
it's
these
sort
characters.
of representing how their first best destiny has always been the crew of the Enterprise and everything else is just unfulfilling and disappointing and they can never reclaim the glory days when they were on
the journey we feel like we've had with Kirk is obviously in the motion picture he was like not retired, but he was like an admiral, he had an easy job and he hated it. You know, he hated like this thing because he wanted to adventure, and then he's been through all this stuff. He's matured through Wrath of Khan and losing his son and stuff, and now you kind of go, now you've had those full experiences, I feel like you could actually retire, you could actually sort of have a quiet life. But then the idea of just being like, you know, I don't know, for the other characters, it just feels a bit like, no, they would keep going. And that's why I quite like the fact of like Sulu's a captain now and Janice Rand is still doing what she loves and whatnot. I much prefer what we got.
Same here.
The briefing scene I think there's a lot of scenes in this movie that are fraught with tension, but I think the first scene that actually does it is this briefing scene where we see the CNC, the high ranking commanders of Starfleet, and then just the crew of the Enterprise, and they have no idea why they're here, and the CNC just comes in. And like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a meeting like that where someone has just come in and they've just dropped a bombshell, and they are so blunt with it, where you have to you sit up, like you go, oh, why am I in this meeting? Is this just another pointless meeting? And then they go, yeah, we're closing down, and you're just like, but then for him to just go, to put it succinctly, the Klingon Empire's got 50 years worth of life left to it, and that's it. And then he sits down, and then a mysterious figure walks in, who we find out is Spock, who has opened up a dialogue with his father, with the Chancellor of the Klingon High Council. But I absolutely love this scene, because this is where we first see the old wounds and the established opinions that the crew and the executives have of the Klingons, where you've got one side that goes, the status quo has to change and we must be at the forefront of that change, compared to the old institutionalized guards who are going, they will just be the alien trash of the galaxy. We can never trust them. What makes you think that we can trust them now? To even Admiral Cartwright going, we shouldn't do anything. We should wait until they are on their knees before we even consider it. And again, it impersonates or references what happened directly after the effects of Chernobyl, where the Soviet Union, underfunded, all technology, with absolutely zero way of containing a major radioactive disaster, visually struggling, and sending people to die under the promise that they would get hundreds and hundreds of rubles for their valiant efforts, knowing full well they were sending people to die. And we just see Starfleet and the Federation as the Americans and the US, like the Americans and NATO, effectively going, let's just do nothing and wait until they are at their weakest.
Isn't that what America did, though? Like,
yes.
Yeah, because that was it. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure America didn't try to like they offered help, but then didn't really push it, and then they were like, okay, and then
and
Russia recovered, I guess. But
this is what makes it great, because we see the opposite. Throughout this movie, we see the opposite side of what would happen if America extended that olive branch and really forced that we don't care, we are enemies, we are here to assist you, we are here to help you. But I love that Spock vouched for Kirk and the crew to be the Federation's envoy, and that they would escort Gorkon to Earth for this peace treaty. Gorkon, by the way, is Gorbachev in this story. But the tension between Spock, you personally
vouched for me,
and it's the tension in the exchange between Spock and Kirk. What did you guys think of that?
The writing was brilliant. The acting was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, obviously, we'll get to our polls later, but it's the fact of like what I really liked about this is showing the darker side to our characters, like the idea that they do have prejudices, and the fact that Kirk genuinely hates Klingons. Like, it's this weird thing of we're only used to seeing our heroes, our Star Trek captains, in times of peace, essentially, or at least when there's war, it comes later. So we have like Picard being a very well-rounded sort of, not really having an opinion on a lot of sort of people. Like, he doesn't like the Ferengi, but no one does, And it's only like the Borg later on that he kind of just goes, okay, kind of hate everything to do with them. But this is our first instance of seeing like a captain just being like, no, like fucking, and it's kind of shocking. Like it's kind of something we don't see a lot, where we don't see intolerance told from the good guy perspective. Where we're used to the good guys always being the ones who are all happy and like tolerant and stuff. But yeah, he lost his son. He's been through this like war, like literally all we have seen of the Klingons is bad shit so far. So
It's
why should they believe them?
it's really interesting
Yeah.
because there was Bill Shatner actually approached, because this scene was a two-camera setup, so it was literally one focused on Bill, one focused on Leonard for the scene, so they could record both reactions to each other's dialogue. And Bill Shatner implored Nick Meyer. The scene where Spock goes, Jim, they are dying, and Kirk famously says, let them die. Bill wanted the camera not to move to Spock's reaction, but to keep it on Kirk, so Kirk quickly realizes what he has said, that it is wrong, and that he regrets it. Because in the delete, like in the actual B-roll footage for that, it's like, let them, like, because he goes, let them die. And then he goes,
Yeah.
and do you know what I mean? So you can see facially he regrets what he has said. But I don't know if it would have worked, because I think seeing Spock's reaction to his old friend uttering those words, like actually being willing to see a civilization, a species die out because he hates them to that degree.
Well, and this is the thing, though. This is the whole thing about war, where it's the same, like we say, the parallels with sort of the US and Russia. It's the fact of like you don't hate the country, you don't hate the people, you don't hate the country. We don't hate the people of Afghanistan, we don't hate the people of Iraq, we don't hate the people of Russia, we don't hate the people of Ukraine. All these things. It's the fact of it's the people in charge that are the problem. And yet, with these actions, with these sort of like let them die, like let their planet die, you're not just hurting the people who have started the war, the people who've been pushing the war, the people who have sort of made their people, militarized in this way. You're killing the actual, the women and children, the families, the people. And it's that sort of selfishness of supporting war, and it's wonderful seeing that, but then seeing how he hates all Klingons, not without realizing that he only should hate the ones who have perpetuated this conflict,
Yeah, exactly.
But it's beautiful scene between like Spock and Kirk, like exactly like you're saying. It's wonderful.
What do you guys think of Kim Cattrall as Valaris, who was a late change because it was supposed to be Lieutenant Savick that was going to be in Valaris's place, but Gene Roddenberry, who famously did not like this movie, but again, he did not like most of the Star Trek movies, but this was the last one he's seen, obviously, before he sadly passed away.
Spoilers.
He wanted Nick Mayer wanted Savick to play the role of Valaris, and Gene Roddenberry hated that idea, absolutely hated it, and Nick Mayer stormed out of a meeting with Gene Roddenberry, and he said, it is my character. He created Savick from The Wrath of Khan. Yeah. It is my character. He does not have a say on what I do with my character. And if he, basically, if he doesn't like it, then he can hand back all the money I have made for him off the back of the Star Trek movies. And I was like,
oh yeah, spicy.
No, that's a lift up handbag moment, Goodwill. Hang
on, no, I don't have a handbag.
No, I don't have a handbag, but it is that moment.
I've got a backpack, but it won't have the same effect. But it's the introduction of Kim Cattrall, because Kim Cattrall had been in a few movies. She's been in Mannequin and a few lower budget ones.
Police Academy.
City Limits, the 1984 movie with James Earl Jones that no one knows about, but fellow Mystery Science Theater 3000 fans will know intimately.
She was in Sex and the City later, wasn't she?
No one cares.
Police Academy.
So she was
in Police Academy.
Yes, she was. Yeah. So the introduction to Lieutenant Valaris, who graduated top of her academy, but we see this introduction when they get to the Enterprise A, and the crew, they just want to get this over and done with. They are really not enthused about this mission. They want to get it over and done with, to the point where Kirk is so eager to get it over and done with that he breaches regulations in space dock about how fast you can go leaving it. And the one thing I love about Nick Mayer when he takes over a Star Trek film, and we see this in Star Trek Picard season 3, which is heavily influenced by the Undiscovered Country. It's the naval protocol, it's the ambient noise, it's the militaristic feel of it all, and it's that general atmosphere of an old battleship with an old crew that are they just want to get this over and done with. They are, they're old war dogs, and they have got their prejudices. And I love this scene, but then we get the captain quarters scene where it's captain's log, stardate 691. I have never trusted Klingons, and I never will. I can never forgive them for the death of my boy. That sums up Kirk, excuse the pun, to a T.
Yeah.
That is, we see, because during our reviews of all 6 original movies, me and Synoiz have seen Kirk go from arrogant to broken to humbled to having nothing to lose to gaining his family again. And in this, we just see the culmination of that journey, but still having those prejudices, because at the end of the day, he lost his son, a son that he was just reconnecting with. And it makes it especially sad considering the actor who played David did sadly die a few years before The Undiscovered Country was made. Which is kind of, there's a poignancy to the photo. Yeah. But we see this.
We nearly put him in as a cameo on the poll, didn't we?
No, we did. We have.
We did? Oh, no.
Yes.
Okay.
Go to the Nerdy Up North X Twitter page. There is a poll there. Please vote on it. If you're a member of the Nerdy Up North community, there is also a poll there. And if you're a part of the Nerdy Up North Discord, there is another poll there, because I love them.
3 polls out.
3 polls.
You love your polls.
I'd overpromised last week. On the episode last week, I was like, yeah, we're going to do loads of polls. And then we were like, shit, we need to do loads of polls now.
We need to do loads of polls. Oh, no. Yeah, so this is a very poignant scene. And then we see Lieutenant Valaris just there at the door frame. The door frame, which is very conveniently pitched open by a hold all.
Yeah.
Which I was just like, it's a little bit too much. Go on.
But it meant something.
I'm going to be honest, I need to talk about this. I'm not keen on Valaris at all. Like, I'm actually... Yeah, no, I was going to say I'm not keen on her at all. Like, I'm not keen on Kim Cattrall's performance in this. I think it's because she's too human. Like, throughout the whole thing, like, as soon as she appeared on screen after her first couple of scenes, I was like, Romulan spy. Like, immediately was just like, she's a Romulan spy because she's not acting Vulcan at all. Like, she's like, you can see that she's nervous. You can see that she's very emotional. She's got the little, like facial things and stuff. And I was just a bit like, does she know what Vulcans are meant to be like, kind of thing? And the whole thing said to me, there's something wrong with her. And obviously she's not a Romulan spy, but because I was immediately thinking that, I was like, okay, when's it gonna happen? And it kind of ruined the film a bit. And knowing that it was meant to be Savick would have been perfect. Like, it would have been the perfect thing of this character who we've had in multiple movies now, who we now love, who've now fleshed out enough. We now know that there's this wonderful rapport between her and Spock and this trust between them. And just going, and then for what she does later on in this movie, that would have been perfect. This whole thing of going, you don't have to be a bad person to do bad things if your intentions are in one direction, And that's the entire point of this movie. It's the whole thing of, we're not saying that the conspirators are evil or want to like destroy the universe or something like that. Like we've seen, they're not hungry for power. They're literally just going, I think we need to go in this direction. The same way that we have like fucking in the UK with Brexit and stuff, the same way that we just had people on both sides being like, okay, we need to do this because otherwise everything will fail. And then the other people were also like that. And yeah, I don't know. It just would have worked so much better with Savick, I think.
Yeah,
And I just
yeah.
wasn't keen on Valeris at all, and it's a bit of a shame. Yeah, but
It's
I don't know. We what do you think, David? Was she too emotional?
Should they have rewrote her character into a Romulan then?
I would have accepted that better.
Yeah.
I would have accepted
It
if
would
they
have made
literally turned around
sense.
and went, she was a spy. Like if they kept Savick, the whole thing of going, look, she is a good person. It's just her intentions are she believes this is the way to go, along with Cartwright and all the conspirators. But since it's a new character that just popped up out of nowhere, had absolutely no rapport with any of the rest of the cast that we'd seen, and we were just meant to be like, oh, she's an old friend of Spock's, apparently, and there must be this big trust there. It it just didn't work. They should have given up on the original idea that they went with and went, oh, she's a Romulan spy and it's all a trick, or something. It would have felt safer.
What makes a good villain, and I've said this a few times on many of the podcasts that Nerdy Up North do, it's not how evil they are or the evil deeds that they do. What makes a good villain is that they thoroughly, truly believe what they are doing is right,
Yeah.
and that belief drives them. Everyone else may think it's wrong. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It's Gul Dukat.
Gul Dukat.
He's
Think about the greatest villains in Trek. You've got Gul Dukat, who genuinely believes everything, and he's so deluded that he genuinely goes, no, I had to do this. And, oh, the reason why they all got killed is because they wouldn't accept us being in charge, the silly bastards kind of thing. And then, then when we look at worse villains like Keiko O'Brien, she loved botany so much that she was willing to, destroy the entire galaxy.
She did the most heinous of crimes. As we all know, she married the greatest Starfleet officer of all time and essentially emasculated him.
Yeah,
but
ruined a potential relationship with Bashir. From O'Brien. I don't know. I've seen way too many gay memes on the last month, and it's either been bloody Bashir and O'Brien or Bashir and Garrick.
It paid off for Bashir because we got the Garrick Bashir romance, and I don't care what anybody says. I am with the great Andrew Robinson in when I say Bashir filled the spoon. But when we see Valeris with Spock discussing, how this is the final, this is the final mission with, as part of the crew for Spock, and that he is essentially, not in a dodgy way, he is essentially grooming Valeris for his role as one of the crew of the Enterprise. This, for me, knowing that the role was originally intended for Savick, this for me feels more right with Savick, because we've seen we saw him with her at Starfleet Academy. We saw him grooming her all the way through that, talking to her in Star Trek 3. Obviously, they did the horizontal Vulcan hanky-panky bang-bang fingers. And then in Star Trek 4, when he was regaining his mind, and that's the last time we see it. And I think this would have been the conclusion of the Savick arc, albeit with a massive fucking twist at the end. I think that would have been, it would have been chef kiss. And far be it for me to dispute the great bird of the galaxy, Gene Roddenberry, but let's be honest, not everyone is right all the time.
Yeah.
And in this instance, Gene was wrong.
Yeah.
Do we agree?
Well, you saw her crying at Spock's funeral. That could have been the start of this, right? Like it broke her.
Yeah, like it's the idea of she was learning from Spock that logic isn't everything. Where it's the idea that she was learning, oh, wow, actually, by having these human traits, it allows you to make these crazy decisions that, a Vulcan wouldn't usually. And that's how they get out of all these scrapes and stuff. But then it could be a major plot point of being like, well, actually, leaning into that doesn't work out that well. So it's more of a sort of So it kind of adds to the impact on Spock if Savick was like, hey, look, I took your advice and I started thinking like a human and I betrayed everyone. And he's just like, oh, my philosophy is actually fucked. Like, it doesn't,
Yeah.
and that's that's why he's so angry. When we see, like, it's a bit to talk about later, but when we see how angry Spock gets in an instant is absolutely beautiful, but it doesn't feel earned in this film because they just foisted this new relationship on us a little bit.
The subsequent scenes I do want to go into in depth because there's so much to unpack, even with just the arrival of the Klingon ship, the D7, Katinga, Kronos 1,
Ding.
the Katinga class. There's so much to unpack because obviously the crew of the Enterprise, they are experienced, they are seasoned soldiers, if you will. And even when Kronos 1 is just flying straight over them, right, straight over the top, and if one of the crew goes, shall we raise shields? And even Kirk's like, I've never been this close. This is a first for Kirk, and this is a first for a lot of the crew. And when we see the very, very tense hail between Gorkon and Kirk quite literally tries to bluff and say, would you and your party like to dine on the Enterprise as guests of the Federation of the Planet? Hoping, praying that Gorkon would politely decline. But then Gorkon calls his bluff and be like, I would be honoured. And you see for the brief second, Kirk is slightly taken aback and he's like, I will arrange to have it beam over for 1930. The little side comment to Spock where he walks past, he's like, well, I hope you're happy. And then Valeris suggesting, there is a crate of Romulan ale. It might make the night go smoother. But I want to reference what Chekhov says when he takes the con, because Chekhov sits down and he goes, guess who's coming to dinner? It is a direct reference to the 1967 film of the same name, where a young woman brings home to her family 1967. No. Well, 1967, different sensibilities, but she brought home an African American to dinner. And the film is about how they all deal with that situation. It was quite progressive at the time, but that is, not a lot of people know that, but it is a direct reference to that movie, that we are getting Klingons coming aboard. They have never been aboard the Enterprise. We've never entertained Klingons. And then we lead in. Sorry, go on.
And it's great. It's the same thing. It's the same message of this idea of getting through intolerance, and that what's uncomfortable to start with, but then it kind of gets easier the more you do it. Like the more you're around something, you go, oh, actually, it's not that bad. And it's kind of good that this exposure therapy kind of works over the course of the film in a roundabout way. But obviously, like with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, it's an uncomfortable dinner scene.
This is probably one of my most favorite scenes in Star Trek, because we really, really see this crew's beliefs, prejudices just laid bare for all to see. Even before they beam aboard, the tone that Shatner uses, where he's just like, let's get this over with. He just goes, energize.
Yeah.
And it's so deflated. He so does not want to be in this situation. We have all been in our jobs where we have been told to do something and we hate it. And no matter how much you put a fake smile or anything like that, you are just so deflated that you have to do this. You are so not in the moment to carry this out. But Kirk is still a captain. They beam aboard. Even the little music, like dum dum. And the bosun whistle and everything like that, which is naval tradition, and you just straight away the awkwardness.
But what I like, though, is that the Klingons are all for it. Like, obviously there's a lot of bias there, but it's the fact that the Chancellor and even Chang are basically like, yeah, cool, let's do this kind of thing. Like, and it's this And it's a weird vibe where it's our heroes, our protagonists are the difficult ones in this situation, whereas the Klingons seem to be okay with it. And it's just such an interesting take, and I like it.
It's a
You
good
know,
role
yeah.
reversal, isn't it? Where the Klingons
Yeah.
are the progressive. They are reaching out. They are being the progressive ones, and we see our heroes that we have seen at this point, 25, 27 years, not being overly thrilled, not wanting to do it, and like even when they greet you through, they greet each other. We see David Warner as Gorkon is brilliant. He is so intimidating, yet the way he talks, the way he discusses everything, he is so progressive. He is so not what you expect of a Klingon. And then,
well, they shoot from his feet up too, right?
Yes!
To make it even
Yeah.
more. No.
it's brilliant. But then
with his little spiked booties.
little spiked booties. But then we get, or as we call them in England, goth boots. We see bring back Klingon goths. We see the introduction of General Chang, Christopher Plummer, and immediately you can tell that Chang is obsessed with Kirk. He is just not in love, but he is so. He is clearly obviously he's a military commander, but he is so ingratiated with Kirk. He is so obsessed with Kirk.
He's the opposite of Kirk.
Yeah, he can express so much feeling in
Do you
one
mean
eye.
literate, David?
Yeah.
Do you mean
Yeah.
literate?
It's
As in, it's like Kirk doesn't know who Shakespeare is, and Chang's like, I've memorized it all, you fuck.
but it's so like Christopher Plummer can express so many feelings in one eye that very few actors can do in a full range, and it's just like direct eye contact with Chang, and Kirk is very, even in both transporter scenes where he's deliberately trying to avoid eye contact. And we just
and there's only one eye to avoid, which should make it easy, really.
Yeah, but it's like, I've so wanted to meet you, Kirk, and it's just like he is a fanboy. Chang is a fanboy.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel compared to because this is the whole point. Like, we kind of see Kirk, and we see in later Trek, like Berman Trek, we see like just how famous Kirk is. Like, even in Discovery, we have people going, "Hey, look, this is a famous person." No, not in Discovery. Sorry. Well,
no, there's
we do actually when they go in the future. But anyway, but it's the idea of how renowned he is, but during this wartime where the enemy are obsessed with him because he has a target on his head. Like in Star Trek V, we have, I've forgotten his name now, but the random Klingon character who wants to be the one that killed Kirk.
And
Captain Avenged Sevenfold. Yes, that's
I can't remember. I really enjoyed him. But
my tears don't fall; they crash around you.
Captain.
I didn't think the film used him well enough, but I did love him. Yeah. But it was he reminded me way too much of Gary Glitter. I'm sorry, but
I'm trying to avoid that. This is why I mentioned Avenged Sevenfold. But go on.
I know, but that's it's there now, and I can't avoid it. But and then we see the same with General Chang, and we just kind of go like, wow, we're used to just being Kirk. It's just our Kirk who we've had throughout the original series, had throughout our films. But he is this legendary enemy hero for the Klingons. And Chang is just the latest guy being like, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one to kill this fucker.
Do you see? I mean, I love it where he's like, because Mark's just put it in the chat there. I have so wanted to meet you, Kirk. One warrior to another. And Kirk's just like, I don't know how to take that. And then the other Klingon just goes, sincere admiration, Kirk. Right.
I will actually say, mentioning the chat, we've got lovely Gavin Blackburn is adding a lot of cool stuff. Mentioning, would you have accepted a recast Savick? Had they not had Robin Curtis? And I probably wouldn't have, actually, if it hadn't. It's the sort of thing where if we had said it wasn't Gene putting the stopper on it and it was just that Robin Curtis didn't want to do it, I can understand that, as I would prefer them to have changed it for Kim Cattrall if they couldn't get her. But if she was willing to do it and they just went no, that pisses me off. But no, exactly what Mark said. It's
the dinner scene.
Brilliant.
So a little bit of a tangent on this one. They had a bet with Shatner because the food on the plate is squid, dyed blue. They had a bet, and I think it was $1,000, that Shatner would not eat this. He done ate that shit and made 1,000 ponies off it. But it was actually blue squid that was on the plates.
Well, was it a precursor to GAC, do you think? Before they'd fully worked out what Klingons were.
Probably.
They were just like,
probably.
okay, well, they eat stuff that we would class as disgusting. And they went, why, if squid, why not whatever GAC is, worms?
Worms. This is, I mean, there's so much to unpack in this awkward as fuck scene. But it is brilliant because there is little quips, little comebacks, and a shitload of Shakespeare.
You get two classically trained actors going at each other, right?
Yeah. What's really interesting for the Undiscovered Country, the Shakespeare all the way through is not once quoted by a human.
Yeah.
It is all Klingon. Yeah. So we see Chang, obviously a literary head, where he's like, Gorka's like, you've not experienced Klingon until you've not experienced Shakespeare until you've read it in the original Klingon. And then Chang goes, Tak ba, tak bek, which they had to sort of shoehorn in because there was actually no word in the Klingon language for to be. So they sort of had to shoehorn it in. But what's
the direct translation then, if there is
to be or not to be? It's I don't know what the direct translation is, but that's what it is. It's takbar, takbar. But we see the way that it's set up, which is, I mean, it's a beautiful redress of the Enterprise de-observation lounge, but we see Gorkan at the one end and off to a corner, and then Kirk at the other end and to a corner. And we see that the way that they've set up the scene, where instead of Spock, the first officer, being with his captain, he's actually sat with Gorkan, showing the audience that this is the side that Spock is on, because Spock knows this needs to be done. And then we see the two old warriors, Chang and Kirk, together. And I think it's the tiny little things they do in this make it. And we see that the pleasantries break down very quickly. But it's even the tiny little things, like the Klingons working out how to unring a table mat, a napkin, sorry, and struggling with.
It's so comical. Chang doing the thing with the mat.
But they go on about inalienable human rights, and immediately Azad Bud jumps on that, and she goes, human rights. One very mention is racist.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think like their mindset is like everyone is entitled to human rights because we have them and everyone should have it. And it's like, well, no two cultures are the same, and there are different customs and beliefs, and
which is the big deal throughout Star Trek. It's the fact of like we have like stuff like the Ferengi, like I mentioned before. It's the fact of going, well, what would be classed as humane for a Ferengi is not what would be classed as humane for a human. And we always pitch them as, oh, they're the evil corporate, like, the capitalist sort of enemy. But you're like, well, from their perspective, it's that weird thing of being like respecting a different race's traditions and whatnot, and not seeing it, not comparing it to what you have, kind of thing. And this scene just does it absolutely perfectly. One thing I want to mention, though, is the fact of, with only the Klingons quoting Shakespeare, that's akin to the whole Russian culture taking in so much of America, but not the other way around. Like this idea of, like, they had Coca-Cola, they had all these things, like they were so indoctrinated by American products and films and stuff that they like had over there, and yet it just wasn't the same at the other side. Like literally America were like, yeah, we pretty much have nothing from Russia over here, like maybe vodka, but and I think there's something really interesting about that, like
It's
about
cultural
the
assimilation, but it's the fact of uh, Western civilization, Western culture can easily be assimilated by countries that have the same values, whereas Russia was so different. Obviously, it was communist, it was not capitalist, and the only thing that Americans really embraced from Russia was, like you said, vodka and maybe larder. But that was like
there were cars, weren't there? Was that
there were
larder?
cars. The larder were the cars, yeah. And it was like, but even then, it was like it was never a mass appeal product or anything like that. So you saw in this where the Klingons have embraced human literacy, human culture, and sort of morphed it into their own not psyche, into their own what's the word? I'm losing my words again. I've got a Nigel hemorrhage.
What is it? The
The cultural psyche.
Yeah.
So, you know, they assimilate it into their cultural psyche, and it's really interesting. Like I said throughout the movie, not one human mentions Shakespeare. And when this breaks down, and Brigadier Kirkland is like, we all know where this is going. You know, this is the annihilation of our culture. And the crew of the Enterprise just go, well, that's not true. But they don't provide a reason. They don't provide, like, this is not the annihilation of your culture because, or, you know, we do not want to do that. There's sort of that standoffish element throughout the scene. And then it's sort of broken where Chan is sort of de-escalating it. He's like, as you can see, there are things on both sides. He's like, we need breathing room. And then Kirk immediately just goes, Earth Hitler, 1938. Paraphrasing what Spock had done earlier with Gorkon and Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. And then just Gorkon just sat there after all this and just going, well, I see we've got a long way to go. And I love it because it just shows two institutionalized old guards with their beliefs, with their way of life, having to accept that things are about to change, but they don't know how they are going to survive in it, how they are going to deal with it, and how these issues are going to be addressed. And it's answered in the subsequent scene with Gorkon.
Well, and at the end of the film, where we get the wonderful quote from Kirk, which is, what was it? Some people think the future means the end of history.
Yeah.
And it's that realization of, oh, that was my mindset before. Like both him and Chang had that mindset. And it's Kirk who's the one who manages to get out of it and realize the actual situation.
It's the little joke. And I mean, I have done this before. When it's the end of an awkward situation or the awkward night where you just didn't want to be there and you just want to go and you just say, well, we must do this again sometime. But when Gorkon comes back and he goes, you know, if there is to be a new world, our generation is going to have the hardest time living in it. And again, it's a reference. It is a reference to the Cold War. It is a reference to the fall of the Berlin Wall. And, you know, these you think like the Cold War was what, 40, 50 years old, shall we say? It's a long time. It is a long time to have a way of life, a frame of mind in those military industries, in those political forums, for it to just be like, it's over now. And, you know, you have to think the collapse of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, that was in a short space of time. And then people have to go, shit, we have to change.
So we're friends with the Russians now?
Yeah, we have to change our mindset. And it was a weird thing because, like, I don't know if you guys know the Doomsday Clock.
Not personally.
No. So the Doomsday Clock, for those that don't know, the Doomsday Clock is measured every year, and it determines, you know, like how far is humanity from annihilation, from disaster. Yeah. So obviously at the moment it's like, but in the 80s,
it's 1:30 in the morning. Goodwill admitted.
it's Lorraine Kelly's on. That's how far forward we are. But for the 80s, I mean, we had threads in the UK. That's how like people thought what was going to happen. Complete.
If you haven't seen this, David, Threads is an amazing movie, which is basically what happens if we get to nuclear war in the UK, and it is bleak as all fuck. We basically over here we had Threads, and we had what is it? When the Wind Blows, which was an animated show, and both of them just made people go, yeah, let's not do this. Let's not have a nuclear war.
It's harrowing, but the Doomsday Clock, even all the way through the 80s, I think it was like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and then the Cold War ended, and that Doomsday Clock for the first time since it was conceived went to like 20 minutes. So there was like unbridled optimism, hope, positivity. But again, the old generation, they had to find a way to live in this time of peace and this time of like mass nuclear disarmament. And, you know, nowadays they'd be more happier. But Gorkin's words to Kirk, you know, we are going to have the hardest time living in it. And it speaks true.
Well, I think it's true of anything. Like, it's the fact of like in the situation we're at now, where the younger generation are like all these crazy trends and all these crazy things, all these new sensibilities and stuff. Like, I'm getting to the age now where I find myself having to check myself, looking at things, being like, what the hell's this? Has everyone gone stupid? Is that like, you know, oh, well, you know, back in my day kind of thing. And it's weird because you just go like, yeah, it is tough when it's like generations underneath you that you just go, no, it has to be the way I learned how to do things. And getting out of that mindset is really difficult. And obviously, like we're saying here, like getting out of a mindset about an opinion of a different race or an opinion of a different sort of culture, you can't shake it off. It's not that easy to shake off, but it's the stronger man that can.
The relief when they do leave, though. I'm going to bed. Let me know if there's any other way we can screw up tonight. That was literally me when I finished work today. I was just like, I'm going. Let me know if there's any other way we can screw up. And I just left. But it, you know, when it slowly zooms in on Spock, when the rest of the crew is just like, horrible table manners. Did you see the way they ate? And McCoy's just like, I'm gonna find a pot of black coffee. And Spock's just sat there and like stood there, and he's seeing his friends. He's seeing his friends' prejudices laid bare, raw. And you have to wonder what was going through Spock's mind at this point. That, you know, like, does he believe that this can go ahead if his friends, his closest friends, his family believe this? What would the rest of the Federation, what would the rest of Starfleet believe? You know, you had this major war in Discovery and Strange New Worlds, you know, that killed millions. Yeah, exactly. Like,
you were in it,
David.
I survived.
You were in it.
Poor David. We need to get a bumper sticker for David that just says, "I survived." Jiggle. And all I got was this lousy bumper sticker.
They didn't even let me steal the uniform, and I tried.
The Jiggle of them. But it's but when we see like Kirk goes to bed and he's just like, no, Robbie Liddell to be served at other functions, and he's immediately called back to the bridge. And you just see, I mean, I don't know about this. Like, you've gone to a function, you've drank an intoxicating amount of Romulan ale, and then you've gone, I'm the senior staff. I'm going to the bridge to pilot the Federation flagship. And you just see Chekhov just like, because the Spock detects an unusual amount of neutrino radiation, and Valeris doesn't know anything, and then he asks Chekhov, and Chekhov just goes, Chekhov, do you know anything about unusually large radiation? He's just like, only the size of my head. But this is when shit hits the fan, though.
Yeah.
And this is where, like right there on the screen, a torpedo is fired at Kronos 1. And you see the stunned silence of the Enterprise crew as this ship is being hit. And immediately, everyone just battle stations, confirming what's going on, wanting a report, checking in all decks. This is where Nick Meyer plays into his best ability at like bringing in like naval procedures and militaristic roles, where he's just like, yeah, if something like this would happen, you would immediately check in with all departments, check in with all what the hell's going on?
Who's fired that?
Yeah, who's firing at these torpedoes? Scotty legging it down, confirming like nothing has been fired. We are still fully loaded. And it's really telling rewatching the scene, looking at Valeris's behaviour, because she's just like, yep, direct hit. Not like who shot it, why did they shoot it? She's just like, yep, it was a direct hit, Captain. And it's really... So go on.
Here's a question for you. Do you think her suggestion of Romulan ale, like, which is so out of character for a Vulcan to be like, hey, break this law by having like this illegal substance like on the thing, was that deliberate to make sure that everyone was not properly there for this scene?
Yes, it's brought up in the trial by Chang towards McCoy. I thoroughly believe that it was Valeris's plan. Like, she brought the Romulan ale aboard, and it was a thing to look. Everyone was
to
a
be
bit
like, oh well,
intoxicated.
you didn't know that you didn't fire the shot because you were all really drunk at the time.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You didn't know that you couldn't save him like surgically because you were drunk at the time.
So 2 torpedoes are fired at Kronos 1, and the ship loses its gravitational field, so the Klingons start floating. And then we suddenly see on board Kronos 1 2 Starfleet dressed...
2 people in spacesuits.
In Starfleet spacesuits, yeah.
It's like a weird Daft Punk video, but with even worse graphics, I think is how I describe this scene.
I think for 1991, I think they did the best with a budget of 30 million.
I think... I'm going to say about this scene, because basically what happens in this scene, we see the Klingon, the Klingons getting assassinated by these 2 seeming Starfleet officers in, spacesuits. But basically it tries to be fancy with CG blood, where you can see the CG blood globules flying around and stuff like that. But it hasn't aged well. No. And it's very much why we still need practical effects in cinema. Because it very, very, it's literally like going, do you want your film to look good for the first 4 years and then look terrible forever afterwards?
I think,
or do you want to use practical effects? That's my hot take of the day. But after seeing a lot of films that use practical effects, I'm just like, this is timeless. This is amazing.
If Paramount had the conviction and the money to do so, I think scenes like this in the films and Star Trek V overall, the visual effects would do with it. I mean, they did it for the motion picture. What's stopping them with 5 and like the slightly more dodgy parts? I mean, they did it when they remastered the Next Generation. Again, they polished up certain effects, and they made sure that they conformed. I mean, the original series got a full ground up rebuild of all the exterior shots of the Enterprise and everything like that. But I mean, for the time,
I didn't mind it.
Yeah, for the time,
I know it was purely
brilliant.
Me being a bit sort of like biased about it, but I just felt it was a shame,
I think the higher quality the format the movie's on, the worse the effects look, which is sort of like it is a consequence of progress when it comes to higher quality. I mean, I watched it in 4K. So it's immediate. Like when the arm gets severed with the phaser blast, it's immediate that's just an animated, let's zoom, like a pullback of the arm. But the Chancellor is asking where Chang is, and then the Chancellor is assassinated. And all we see is his body floating in air, smacking the blood. And then when the gravity's... There's still chaos on the Enterprise because they don't know who's firing. Everything's stayed fully loaded. They have no idea what's going on. And then when the Klingon ship restores gravity, I loved it that everything just comes crashing down, but the bodies hit the floor. The body... The Chancellor hits the floor! but the body hits the floor, and then the pink blood splats all over.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the ship is still listening, but then they gain control. And then you see Chang, who we've not seen. And he's like confronting Kirk, like, have you no shred of decency, Kirk? We come to you under a flag of peace, and you blatantly defy that peace. And for that, I shall blow you out of the stars. Oh, I love Chang. And we see Valaris, we see Chekhov bracing for combat. Shields up, Captain. Valaris is there. She's ready on the controls to raise the shields, prep the torpedoes. But Kirk being Kirk, and Kirk realizing the situation, immediately signals surrender, because he knows if he fires upon that ship, it is an act of war. If he surrenders, there is still a chance that any peace may be gained. And I think it's a great moment for the Kirk, because we know here at Trekkin Up North, Synoiz has an issue with Kirk, which is justified. It is justified, though. But we see in this film, he takes the high ground.
Yeah.
I have the high ground, Anakin. But
I have the high ground, Chang. And then Chang still leaps it. But no, it is. It's the fact of, obviously, my problem with Kirk is that he's so hot-headed. And I love that we have the maturity here where he's just going, no. Like, you know, I think there's also a part of him being wise enough to be like, this is too weird. This situation is too weird. I shouldn't act how I normally would, because that's probably what someone's expecting. And I wonder if there's a bit of second guessing in there. But it is really good that he does take the high ground.
Yeah, I think it's because it's to the shock of the crew. And then he nominates to go over there with McCoy. And we just see, like, when Brigadier Kirkland, I can't roll my tongue, Kirkland, confronts him. He's like, have you lost your mind? And he's like, I'll give you my word, I don't know what's going on. And you're like, we're here to help. And we see McCoy try his absolute best. Bearing in mind, again, there's been a large amount of Romulan ale consumed this night. Sorry, martini cough. There has been a large amount of Romulan ale consumed, and McCoy does not know enough about Klingon anatomy. So we see a desperate attempt by McCoy to try and save Gorkon, even mounting the table and like trying to jumpstart his heart. And I love that with the last words of Gorkon, don't let it end this way, Captain. And that's it. Like, Gorkon is dead, and Kirk and McCoy are arrested.
It's beautiful though, but I do feel like you could have happily taken this scene in a comedic way, where he's basically like, the Klingons are like, oh, we didn't realize that this is how human like science works, where basically like you can just beat someone's chest to to jumpstart their heart. Whereas you're like, with Klingons, that probably isn't the case. So all they see is this guy being like, no, I'm innocent. And then just punching the dead body of their leader.
I'm trying to save him.
Yes, we're not violent at all. Just them sitting there be like, this is not a compelling case for your innocence.
Stone Cold Stunner Gorkon off the table.
Yeah, just like elbow drops into him. Like... But I do love the idea of just that. You could happily make this scene comedic. If it was in Star Trek 4 or 5, the whole scene would have been played that way.
Yeah.
So they get arrested. Excuse me. They get arrested. I'm tired because I work hard. And Spock takes...
He's got his cheeky t-shirt.
He's plugging. I don't know what he's plugging. I've never heard of it.
Plug me, David.
Yeah.
The merch. Yeah.
Yes, the merch. Definitely. So they are arrested. Spock takes command, and immediately he wants to deduce what the hell has happened. That 2 torpedoes were fired from the Enterprise, yet the inventory shows that this is not the case. However, we get a nice introduction in the subsequent scenes of Kurtwood Smith himself as the president of the United Federation of Planets.
Who I mocked this character in our previous reviews because I was like, "What the fuck is up with his like facial hair? It's like insane." And then I'm like, I'm really glad that we get to see more of him. You know, I'm like, oh, he's really cool, like design wise. So I'm really pleased that he comes back.
We get so many cameos in this. We get Kurtwood Smith. We get Rene Auberjonois, who is Odo.
Mark Leonard.
Mark Leonard. We get Sisko's father, who was in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Brock Peters, yeah.
Brock Peters. We just get so many throughout the movie, but this is... I have an issue with the Romulan ambassador being there.
No.
Because they are not... It's really weird because there is no involvement of the Romulans at all up until the original series. And then we see, like, in...
They're still meant to be this shadowy, no one has really dealt with them kind of insidious threat that they haven't dealt with yet.
Yeah.
So the idea of them having an ambassador, well, the problem is in 5 it does have an ambassador, like but that's like
but that's
in the neutral
planet.
Zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's literally they're going. The only reason why the Romulans are involved is because it's their space. Whereas the idea of them actually having someone on Earth, it feels too early for this.
Considering like the Lost Era, which is known as like the late 2290s up until 2363 when Next Generation starts. That's called the Lost Era.
Is that because of Romulan ale?
That's because
they just woke up and they're like, what the fuck happened?
But the only mention of the Lost Era is the Treaty of Algernon, whereas there is a ban on the Federation using cloaking devices, and we get the Khitomer attack and the Enterprise C incident, which is destroyed by a Romulan attack because they were attacking the Klingons.
But both wonderful things to happen in Strange New Worlds, maybe.
Yeah, but the next issue, like the next time they are really there is the Next Generation. So to have a Romulan ambassador in like the early 2290s, where it's just like, oh, hang on, we've only known about your existence as like this spin-off of Vulcans for the last 20 years, and prior to that, we didn't even know who you look like because the war 100 years or 150 years prior was done over radio. We didn't know who you look like. There was no capture or anything like that. And it was just, it was weird for me. And there was no real justification. Like they were trying to open trade negotiations. They were trying to open some sort of dialogue. I don't know. I think a little bit more exposition as to why a Romulan ambassador was there may have been needed, but I think me and Synoiz...
I mean, would it maybe, like Mark agrees in the chat, the Romulan ambassador wasn't fleshed out enough.
No.
But could it be that maybe we're mistaking this and the Romulan ambassador was a Romulan ambassador to Kronos? And they were there as part of the Klingons.
Yeah.
But not actually normally dealing with Starfleet.
I was justifying it in my head, and we did a poll. There is an actual, I think it's on Discord, about who stood to gain the most from a Federation Klingon war. So one of them was the Federation, because they get to oust one of their greatest enemies. The Klingons, because they can take what resources they need by force whilst bolstering their image of still being a superpower. All the Romulans, which would take up a political and strategic vacuum should one or both forces fail. But in terms of this, I think it would need the Rimmies. it would need to be justified, like he came with the Klingon ambassador, because the political ramifications of what has occurred between the Enterprise and Kronos 1 could also affect the Romulan star empire. If both these two superpowers go to war, it's not just their space that is going to be involved. It would be the Romulans and whoever is around. Very much, again, America and Russia. Like,
yeah, where the Romulans in this thing would probably be China, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly who they are. They are China. I mean, and again, the Vulcan proverb, only Nixon could go to China. But
which is, it hasn't dated well. Like at the time, that must have been a zinger. But watching it today, you're just like, oh god. But
Yeah.
that didn't. Yeah.
But we see where, you know, the Klingon ambassador is justifying why they have been arrested, what happened, and the president is like, there must be a way to extradite these men, and you know, we must get these back. These are Federation citizens. And the Klingon goes, well, hang on. Are you saying that you will take back these prisoners of ours that have committed an assassination on our leader? You are going to take them back by force. And I love the fact that Kurtwood Smith's performance in this movie is brilliant, but he just goes, this president is not above the law. And I love that, because immediately after you get the chief of staff of Starfleet coming in with Rene Auberjonois with a stunning moustache, and he's just like, here's how we will break interstellar law. Whoosh, page 1. And you're just like, because what made it funny later on, you know, where they're speaking to Azad Boa about the peace conference, he did not even have the foresight to remove Operation Retrieve from the fucking desk next to him. So you see, like, all these, like, top-level political brass, and then right in the background, next to the president's desk, Operation Retrieve, we will attack Rurapente here, and we will do this here. And I'm like, turn you... Oh, he's gone. Oh, my.
Ah, yeah.
Well...
This is the content we want.
But we see, I'll have to swap everyone round. You're all looking deliciously
I'm in the
refocused.
middle, watching
My Wi-Fi dropped.
David undress.
Your Wi-Fi dropped, that's fine. But we see, remember everybody, subscribe to Nerdy Up North to see more content. Right, okay.
Right.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi dropped.
Swap us around, swap us around.
Nope. There we go. Right, we see... Hey, Synoiz.
There's bits of me. What's this? What's this?
Hey, Synoiz.
Yeah.
You just been through David.
Ah, yeah. That's it. Go on. I'm trying to push it back. I'm trying to
shut your beautiful
push it.
face. Anyway,
Push it. No.
shut up. I'm improvising. But we see like
one thing I want to mention, like Mark's pointed out in the chat, like if Klingons are Russian and Federation are American, Romulans are the British. I disagree with this, because I'd say, in the analogy of Star Trek, the Vulcans are the British. Like, you know, when we consider
they drink tea, but go on.
Well, when we consider like how we're viewed by the Americans in the scheme of Enterprise and stuff, where it's the fact of the Vulcans were the ones holding the Federation back. Like the Vulcans were the ones going, no, we know best. We've done all of this before you, kind of thing. We know what's best for you. You know, like don't do that. And very regimented and very sort of strict about, like, you know, policy and you know, like culture. Yeah, it makes more sense for the Vulcans to represent the British in this, where they're involved in it, but like, you know, America's like, no, fuck off. Stop holding us back, you know?
Ha ha ha. I was only trying to insult the British. I actually think the Vulcans are the British.
There we go, yeah.
Yes.
But it is interesting, though, because it's the sort of thing of, like, you know, like, because it's a bit odd, because the fact is, like, I'm using that metaphor because, like, the Vulcans aren't great people. Like, as we see in Enterprise, the Vulcans are they're fucking dickheads.
They're
you
a bit
know,
of a dick.
they're
Yeah.
dickheads a lot. And then, as we see in this one, they're part of the problem. Like, they're not beyond that, you know, and I think I quite like that.
So we see that Operation Retrieve, the president doesn't want to do it. which again, it shows great leadership from the president. And then we see like the CNC just like, Mr. President, these men have literally saved this planet, and the president just goes, yes, and they will save it again by standing trial.
Yeah.
And that just shows like how determined and how much these people want peace, that it is a literal sacrifice. They would rather sacrifice these two people in the pursuit of peace than risk a full-scale war or risk seeing an entire civilization die out.
But it's the fact of, though, how horrible that is as well, that was their intent from the start. Like the conspirators put this whole thing in motion knowing that it was going to be these heroes that took the blame.
Yeah.
And there's something awful about that. There's something that I think that's the greatest crime of the conspirators here, is the fact that they were happy to throw good people under the bus for what they believed would work. Knowing that this would be the way it was taken, kind of thing.
Yeah. We see that the Enterprise is ordered to return home, and then they say, oh, well, we've got communication difficulties. And Chekhov's just like, excellent. I mean, too bad. We see that Azad Bor has been named Chancellor of the Klingon High Council, and basically she just sees through the president's, sympathetic, sycophantic bullshit, and she's just like, look, my father wanted this peace conference to go ahead, and so do I. I don't think it's a good idea having it on Earth. We'll have a neutral location that's kept secret. But then when we see again, this is where Operation Retrieve is literally there, but we see from her side where the Klingons are doing the exact same thing that the Starfleet boys are doing. Better to attack them now than die on our knees. And Azad Bor is sort of like, well, this is not what my father wanted, essentially. And Chang chimes in, your father was killed for what he wanted. But she rises above it. And again, this shows for a Klingon, this shows how progressive she and her father were, where she's like, the peace conference will go ahead, but Kirk will pay for my father's death.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant because we get the trial scene, which is flawless all the way through.
Another good cameo as well.
A very, very good cameo. But we see, again in Star Trek, the universal translators are never really addressed. They are sort of just there. But we see here where they have got walkie-talkies. They have got a team of translators that are telling them exactly what is happening. And then it's so seamlessly done where it goes from the translators saying what Chang is saying to just Chang speaking English for the convenience of the audience. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I just wanted to know what your opinions were of the trial scene, just while I try and move these two.
What did you think, David?
Dark, different. You never really saw anything like that in Star Trek before. And you get to see, obviously, the first appearance of Michael Dorn. It was just brilliant, wasn't it?
I mean, I had to sort of Google this. I had to look this up on Memory Alpha because I was just like, is it Worf playing Worf? Like, like in a very confusing thing. And then obviously Memory Alpha goes, it's not mentioned in the film, but in the notes for the film, he is the grandfather of Worf. So in the canon, this is basically Moog's dad. Yeah. And that's why it kind of goes, look, we just wanted Michael Dorn in it. And then we thought about the hows and whys later, I really like this. Like, as you know, I love it in Enterprise where we have all the stuff with Hoshi, where it's like how the universal translator worked and like what the universe would be like without this technology. So I like that they've basically gone, hey, we're not using it here. You'll have to struggle through with translators and stuff. And how it does set them up for a fall by basically putting them on the back foot with all of that.
sorry to mention this. Did you guys? Which version of the film have you guys seen? Have you both seen the theatrical release or the
I
director's
saw
cut?
whatever was on Paramount Plus.
Did you? Was there a scene between Azabor and the trial where Spock is in the torpedo tube?
I think I saw the deleted scenes years later.
So there is
so.
There is a director's cut where in between these scenes, Scotty has confirmed with Spock that the Enterprise did not fire these torpedoes. The inventory has been scanned and it's been accounted for. Spock then says we have to visually account for every torpedo. And he said, well, this could take hours. But he says we need to be sure that we did not fire these torpedoes. At this point, I mean, bear in mind, this is in like the torpedo tubes on the dorsal spar where everything's like fired. We see Valeris slide down a pole and basically says to Scotty and Spock that she's been made, like Gorkon's daughter's been made Chancellor of the Klingon High Council. It was on the news. This is like the first mention of the Federation News Network, FNN.
Yeah. And it's never mentioned again, I don't think.
But it's a really weird scene because we see Scotty. Scotty gets a little bit dark because he goes, I bet that Klingon bitch killed her own father.
Yeah.
And Valeris agrees. And he goes, she did not shed one bloody tear. And Spock just shuts him down. He goes, hardly conclusive, considering that Klingons do not have tear ducts.
Yeah.
So they then say we will inspect.
And it's also the idea of in Klingon culture, it's a great honor. Like, yes, he's dead, but he died not in battle, but he died like, you know, he was actually killed. It wasn't like a fool's death, effectively.
Yeah. So we see that Spock alludes to the fact he will know where Kirk is at all times. Doesn't say. Scotty asks, how do you know? Where is he? And then it's a basic order that they need to search the ship from stem to stern, and they need to do a visual check of every single torpedo. Federation News Networks in...
I guess actually it's what Jake does in DS9, even though we don't really ever see it.
The FNN,
It is mentioned, yeah.
But the trial, this is where we see the crux of the setup, where everything that has been done so far is starting to fall into place. Against
the trap is sprung, basically.
The trap is sprung, but it was originally sprung for just Kirk. McCoy is sort of along for the ride, but they use McCoy in a way that, you know, where Chang goes to McCoy, you know, what is your medical status? Oh, well, aside from a touch of arthritis, pretty good. And you just get that one solitary Klingon. It's like, ha!
But one thing I want to mention, two things about this scene before we move from it, obviously, is I love that the judge has the ball thing. Like, because we see this a lot in Trek, like where it's like, is this in human culture at all? Because we get it in the Bajorans in DS9. We get the wonderful trial where the Bajoran judge has this ball that they pick up and they knock on the table rather than having a gavel, whatever the hammer's called. Gavel. Yeah, and I kind of like that it's just a weird like Trek thing or whatever, and it's interesting that this means that we've now seen how pretty much all of our races in Trek do court scenes. Because we have a Cardassian court scene, we have a Vulcan court scene, we have a Klingon court scene here. And yeah, I just think it's just an interesting little thing that I want to mention.
They are directly set up throughout this. Colonel Worf has no leg to stand on in terms of defending these two. They were guilty before they even walked into the court. And we see that in the way that Chang answers the questions and then, you know, says to McCoy, you know, you consumed a large amount of Romulan ale that night. Tell me, Doctor, do your hands shake? And basically saying that, you know, were you drunk?
Yeah,
or were
you've got arthritis
so
and
old?
You're drunk.
Yeah. And he just immediately goes after you know, you were incompetent, either a result of drink or, you know, either a result of ill health or
Age.
drink or age. The court will have to decide. And then he goes, this is the first time as well, I believe, Mark can probably correct me on this. This is the first time we find out what James Kirk's middle name is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
James Tiberius Kirk. The architect of this tragedy, the architect of this whole plan. And he sets up Kirk hook, line, and sinker, pulling out the personal log. I have never trusted Klingons, and I never will. I can never forgive them for the death of my boy. Using his own personal log against him, the key witness testimony saying that 2 Federation officers in gravity, like in spacesuits wearing gravity boots, sets them up hook, line, and sinker to say he had motive, he had means, and as a captain, he is responsible for the conduct of the crew under his command. So even if he had zero involvement in this, even if he did not plan it at all, because it's his crew that carried out the deed, he is responsible as a captain for their actions as they are under his command. They got him. And Chang knows they've got him. The court knows. The witnesses know that they've got him. Everyone watching. And I mean, even the CNC where he's just like, it's a damn show trial. And then you see the president just like throw his glass cleaner onto the table because he knows there is no way out for these two. Yeah. And when they are sentenced to the mining asteroid of Ruapenthe, and that's it. Like, but the twist is that the sentence of death, which everyone thought they were going to get, has been commuted because the peace talks are going on and they want to foster amity. So they've commuted the death sentence and it's just sent them to the penal asteroid of Ruapenthe.
Yeah. I will say one thing. This was the scene where I guessed the twist. Like I knew who the traitor was at this scene. Is as soon as you hear that audio log, like from Kirk, I was like, yeah, no, they were the only person there at that scene that could have recorded that. Had they not have actually got, it just, the whole thing fit together, and I was a bit like, oh damn it, I've got the twist too early,
When you go back and look at that scene where he's reading the captain's log, there was a pan shot from left to right. As he is panning, you can actually see someone walk into the door frame. It's split second, but you see someone walk into the door frame. And yeah, again, when they get that captured log, you're just like, yeah, she was the only one there.
Well, and it's annoying because it's like a lot of the time I and it's that thing like we had with Picard season 3 where we were just like, oh, I wonder if it's this, and then it turned out that we were right, and we were like, I'm kind of disappointed. I kind of wanted to be wrong. I kind of wanted to be surprised, but yeah. But this is the thing. This whole mining planet scene is wonderful. Like I think this whole little bit of the plot is absolutely fabulous.
We'll get to that because we get the scene back on the Enterprise with Spock where he's reviewing the footage of the torpedo strikes. And this is, for me, this is Scotty at his very best in this scene. Because they're reviewing it and he's like, oh, these torpedoes were definitely fired by Enterprise, and like Scotty's like, impossible, they're all visually accounted for, sir. And he's just like remembering to put the sir at the end. But then they started to deduce, like, there was a large amount of neutrino radiation detected around about the time that this happened, and an amount that large can only be generated by another ship. They postulate that it could have been Kronos 1, but that was too far away. So Spock goes very near us, very, very possibly beneath us. And it's the fact that Valaris, out of everyone, suggests it was a bird of prey. So a cloaked bird of prey fired these torpedoes. And Spock states that, an ancestor once said, if you once you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. That's an ancestor. It's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes. but we see Scotty playing.
It's very odd, though, that Valeris suggests this.
Yeah.
It's like, why would they give such a massive clue? It feels weird. I don't know if it's like a firm trust kind of thing, but it does feel weird.
It feels weird, but then we see Spock postulating a hypothesis that just seems out of this world, and then Scotty being the logical one. Because Chekhov goes, we must inform Starfleet Commander. And he's like, inform them of what? A new weapon that can be fired when cloaked? Raving lunatics is what they'll call us. They'll say that we're so desperate to exonerate the captain that we'll say anything. And Spock's like, yeah, you're right. So they need evidence of this. They need to find evidence, because whoever changed the data logs, they're on the Enterprise. Whoever beamed over to Kronos 1 is on the Enterprise. And they deduce that the first bit of evidence that they need to find is the 2 pair of gravity boots, and this is what starts this massive search from stem to stern of the Enterprise. But we do get, as Synoiz said, the whole Rue Repenthe scene, and I think the person who plays the prison warden, he has been in a lot of Star Trek, and he was also, and this is
well, isn't it Malcolm McDowell?
No, it's not Malcolm McDowell.
I thought it was.
No, it is not Malcolm McDowell. He is played by, if it ever loads, W. Morgan Shepherd. He was a British actor. He was in he was in the head minister of Vulcan Science Council in Star Trek. He was in Star Trek Rivals, a game. He was he was in Star Trek: The Next Generation. He's been in a fair, like, Star Trek appearances. There we go. He was in a fair few things. He was Ira Graves in The Schizoid Man. He was the Klingon commandant on Rue Repenthe. He was Katia in Voyager's episode Bliss, and then he was a science minister in Star Trek 09. But for me, he will always be the CO in the Medal of Honor games on the PlayStation. But yeah, so the little introduction to Rue Repenthe where they go there, he's just like, this is the Gulag again. This is the Gulag.
The Klingons are Russia. If you hadn't.
Welcome to Siberia. Yeah.
But it's a chilling, excuse the pun, it is a chilling introduction to, like, where you are, because he's just like, there are no stockades, there was no gates, there are no guards. Work well, treated well, work badly, and you will die. And they just throw a prisoner onto the surface, because he's like, nothing can survive on the surface. And you just see how quickly this person dies being exposed to the cold. And it's like, holy shit. But the whole Rue Repenthe, the whole scenes with Rue Repenthe are brilliant, but they are intermixed with the Enterprise constantly searching for the evidence.
That's it. I will say this is wonderful, because it's like what we got on Strange New Worlds, where we got it where we had episodes where Pike was separated from the rest of the crew, and we get these totally separate A and B plots that mix together.
Yeah.
But this might be my favorite spot. Kirk and McCoy scene throughout all of the movies that we've had, because I really like their little engagement on this and stuff. And what's her name? The Martia. Yeah.
Martia.
I really like her with the yellow eyes, where basically they come across a shapeshifter, and the shapeshifter is like, hey, I can help you get out of here. However, I don't have a spaceship to take us away. So if I can get us to the surface, if you've got a spaceship that can pick us up, then cool, tit for tat, and whatnot. And they go ahead with it, kind of thing.
But
and
she also alludes to the fact that them being sent to Rue Repenthe was not part of the plan. Someone wants them out of the picture, as in, so the death sentence being commuted was not part of the original plan. So although they are in the Gulag, they are still not safe, because there is still a bounty on their heads for whoever can kill Kirk and McCoy. And, whether that be killed while trying to escape or killed in a fight in the prison, they don't care as long as it is done. what I wanted to focus on, what I wanted to discuss was, I love this movie for its how it looks. I think it's visually so on brand for a militaristic Starfleet and how Star Trek should look. This is why I have such an affinity for Star Trek Picard, like season 3, because it's got the same look. It's very Starfleet is a navy and it's militaristic and it's like slightly darker and it's like everything is it just looks more authentic. But for this, we get to see the exploration of the ship. We get to see the galley. We get to see the bunks, the drawers, the bedrooms, the panels, and everyone just like frantically searching. But we see in the galley where, you know, I've got 400 people tearing the ship from stem to stern, and then, you know, Chekhov goes, well, why not simply just vaporize them? And Valaris just goes, oh, like this, shoots a fucking pot. Yeah. And she's just like, oh, as you know, Commander, no one can fire an authorized thing on a starship. No one can vaporize without an alarm.
Because an alarm immediately goes off as soon as she uses the phaser to destroy the pod. And it's foreshadowing. It's basically a plot device to be like, hey, this will come in useful later, which works really, really well, but also incriminates her. So, yeah, Valaris makes some interesting choices through this movie. She's a bit dumb.
Again, Scotty though does play the comic relief again, because obviously Starfleet's screaming for them to go back to space dock, and Spock's like, oh, Scotty, I understand you've got issues with the engines. There's nothing wrong with the bloody things. And he's just like, if we go home, they will dispose of the evidence, and then we will never be able to exonerate or free the... Oh, it could take weeks. And I love that.
I love that he's so slow on the uptake as well. Like everyone else in the previous things where they've hinted that there's some kind of problem, and they just go, oh, I get it, kind of thing. Scotty literally needs it spelled out for him. And then he's like, okay. But I love that he comes in being like, who the fuck's firing phasers? You know, he just comes in like being like, what the? You know? And I just love it. Like the best way to enter a scene like that. That's me. That's me in this situation. Like, what's going on? But I love it.
Kirk kicking an alien in his knee dick.
Yeah. What is that? I wrote this down. Yeah. No, I literally wrote kicks him in the dick. that's the note.
But it's funny. But because, again, McCoy's just sat there like, you got it where you want him, Jim. And Jim's just been thrown everywhere. But like
Marty is like, what is it? It's like, oh, I just kicked him in the knee. And he's like, that was not his knee. You know, not everyone keeps their genitals swayed.
In the same place, Captain.
Yeah, but I love it. And then what does he say to her? He says like, oh, you know,
do you want to tell me anything?
Yeah, that's it.
He's in prison and he's still trying to get his rocks off. It's so
I like the fact, though, one thing I want to say about the prison section that I absolutely love is that there are no universal translators.
No.
And it's the idea of they have no way to communicate with the other people. And that is something that we get brought up again in new series Star Trek Prodigy.
Yep.
Because in the animated show Star Trek Prodigy, we have it where everyone's on a mining planet very similar to this. And they can't form a resistance together. The prisoners can't sort of uprise against their oppressors because they can't talk to each other. They don't know each other's languages. And I thought it was wonderful that it's kind of, that's a hark back to this on this planet. It's a tiny little, you know, dealt with very quickly situation because they meet someone who can speak English. But yeah, it's wonderful.
What did you think to the little cameo from Christian Slater?
It was great.
I wrote down.
Wasn't it?
Oh my word, he was so cute. I literally wrote down Christian Slater as hot officer. There we go.
This is David. This is what you.
Wait, how old was he doing this film?
Yes,
he was young, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was young, but he is a
Pardon
hard.
me whilst I Googled to put my mind at ease.
He is a hardcore Star Trek fan, and he fought his way just to get a little bit part in this movie. And I think everyone here collectively watching Trekking Up North tonight, we need to get David shoehorned into a movie or an episode again, a speaking role to immortalize himself forever as someone who's like been in Star Trek but spoken in Star Trek as well. She was
just like the extra in Star Trek 4 when they're asking about where's Alameda.
yeah,
She was an extra, right? So I'm like, why
that's what you should do. You should literally just walk past, like just barge your way in, and just like, and someone tries to improvise, you're just like, oh, I don't know. I guess it's across the bay in Alameda, and just have Walter Coyne just like absolutely firing off at you.
Okay, he was in his 20s. It's fine. No, but the wonderful thing is, it happens. It's
his mother was the casting director for Undiscovered Country. Oh, nepotism. Never mind.
I love it. Well, to be fair, how did Harry Potter get the role? Recasting soon. But yeah, I think the actually a mate of mine who's a fellow Mr. Gay Great Britain like contestant is recently in a film. I can't mention what film it is, but managed to get a speaking role simply by being such a good extra, where they went like, oh, actually have some lines kind of thing. So it can happen,
It does.
We'll see if it makes the final film, but
yeah, boy, let's get David back on the track. He can be the new Boothby in Starfleet Academy.
Do I look that old?
You could be a young
You
Boothby.
don't have to. No.
Oh wait, no, it's set after it. No, it isn't. It isn't. You could be a young Boothby.
It's 32nd century Boothby.
Oh, everyone I want to be a Klingon. I want to be a Klingon.
No, everyone.
Then we can't see a beautiful face. You gotta be, we can only see like a jaw. It's good
new
jaw,
Trek. It's new Trek. Everyone's hot. You're fine. We will get you in. You will just be the hot groundkeeper. But yeah, so we get that little cameo with Christian Slater as an ensign, just basically say to Sula like, "They want to know if we know where Enterprise is." And Sula's just like, "Oh." But yeah, so Chekhov finds a little bit of blood in the transporter room, confirms that it is Klingon blood.
It's purple. I don't know why that needed so much research.
Well, no, because they don't know what it is, but they need, like, for evidence building, they need to
confirm. It's either Ribena or Klingon blood.
No. Well, it sure as shit ain't Vimto. Yeah, so but they need that evidence. Like,
it's Vimto.
But they need that evidence because it's the first bit that corroborates their theory. So the crew is still tearing the ship apart, and they eventually find the boots in a locker named Dax. And again, a missed opportunity, but they didn't know at the time. But when they confront him,
I love how cocky Chekhov is in this scene. It's brilliant. But Chekhov does the fucking Columbo, the full-on thing, where he's like, aha, as you will see. And he gets the boots out and shows it to this guy. And he's like, if the shoe fits. And then you just got Spock, like a horror, just sort of face palming. And then sort of Spock just being like, check the feet. Yeah. And then we get to see Dax's feet, and they would not wear human boots. So... It's a fun little scene, and it breaks the tension in between everything.
Kirk and McCoy's conversation in the bunks about their prejudices and realizing that they have them, but people had them a lot worse.
I wrote this down because I thought it was such an important thing. This is the turning point of the movie, okay?
Yeah,
and I feel sorry if you missed this line in the flurry of everything, because it's the fact of he's scared about no more neutral zone, and like I was wrong not to take Gorkin at his word, but it's this idea of no neutral zone and pointing out like
there is no
how
boundary.
Even when they're bad things, we kind of get so used to, oh, these guys are the enemies, these guys are the goodies, this is how this works. We get so used to like life being how it is that we kind of can resist change.
Yeah.
And and it's this idea like they've had this neutral zone, they've been enemies with the Klingons for so long, they kind of don't want to give it up, even if it is going to be positive or good, simply because people abhor change,
Yeah, it is their way of life. And then like McCoy says, 3 months till retirement, one day, one night, Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah.
And then obviously Marty sneaks up on Kirk, does the usual one final time Kirk maneuver, where she's like, there's a way to get out of here, and you're the most likeliest candidate in this, and snogs him. And I love McCoy's expression, where he's just like, And he's like, what
What
is
is
it
it with you?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is it? This is it, Kurt. Like McCoy lands so well in this. Like all of his little gags and all of his little McCoyisms, just they're all perfect.
I love the fact where Kirk's just like, still think we're done, and McCoy's just like, yeah, more than ever. But yeah, so when they get to the lift, because she says, you know, go to lift 7 for mining duty, and they think they're being stood up, and you just see this great big hairy Wookiee-like creature, and McCoy's just like, I think we're being stood up, and he's like, no, you haven't, Doctor. They don't take girls. Kirk's face is amazing. I love the fact that it's that. But
what annoys me about this is we find out that where Martia is a shapeshifter, like of some kind, because obviously it's a bit weird that shapeshifters exist, and then they make a big deal out of the founders. But I'm assuming that it's because these are shapeshifters where they have to be humanoid. They don't have the flexibility of the founders. But I do love the idea, but I would have preferred them to keep the yellow eyes, because I love Martia's yellow eyes, and I would have loved it if it was a callback between all their forms, where they can change their form to whatever they want, like whatever humanoid they want. However, you can tell them by the eyes. That would have been cool, but instead they're just totally different actors, basically.
This is like a mythical creature, so that it never been confirmed to be real. I mean, they call her a comaloid, but again, we get. This is a really, really good scene. This plays into the Universal Translator issue. We get to see where the Enterprise has fired up the engines and they're heading to Rurapenthe to rescue the captain, because they are coming out with a shield. And they hit a Klingon listening post. And because they can't use the Universal Translator because it will be picked up, you see them frantically pulling out all the books and stuff like that. And you just see this chubby Klingon who's just sat having blood wine, and he cannot be asked to do his job, and he's like, "Duch vers noch green," and everyone's just like,
identification. Identification. And it's just like...
But it really shocked me, because this is the first time where we see Uhura struggling to understand Klingon. This like genius linguist and master communicator, unable to understand Klingon. What did you guys think of this?
It's a bit of a shame, but I think, to be fair, Strange New Worlds has a lot to answer for basically making Uhura the legend that she is. It's kind of Strange New Worlds has kind of said, look, Uhura's actually a genius, whereas the original series is like, she's just very good at her job, but she's not like the greatest, like well, she's not Hoshi, but it's like the idea of it's kind of showing like, look, Uhura is just a communications officer. She's just a very good one.
She very much sounded how I was the other week with my whole brain issue, where she's just like, we is condemning food, things and supplies. Exactly how I was thinking.
I love the things and supplies. And supplies is.
But I love the fact that in the end, when the Klingons like, don't catch any bugs, and they're just like, they don't know how to respond, and that one officer's just like, fucking laugh.
That's it. There's also in the background, just who has nothing else in the film. It's just literally just there, and I kind of love
hilarious.
it. Like,
that would be hilarious. Somebody thought that up.
Just laugh.
Yeah.
So we see back at Rurapenthe, we see that Martia, Kirk, and McCoy they go through the little tunnel hole and make their way out of the penal colony, and they are traveling to outside of the shield. I love the fact that, because I was reading about this today, that was all shot just outside Anchorage in Alaska. So it was a really nice exterior shot. Like, they didn't have to. They did that to show the scale of like the planet and how they needed to traverse and how far they needed to travel outside of the field. And then we find when McCoy collapses at one point, he's just like, just go in without me, and Kirk goes, no, Spock, put a Viridian patch on my back. So, they'll be on the way. They'll be waiting for us to go out in the field. And I love the fact that, McCoy, who was always insulted Spock, and he's just like, why, that cunning little Vulcan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what did you when they get to when they start camping, when you first I want to ask Synoiz this, the twist of where Kirk just thumps her.
I do quite like it because obviously what happens is they discover that Kirk basically realizes actually she's betraying us. Like he basically works out the fact of, oh, what she's done is they needed us to try and escape so that we could be killed because that's what they wanted. They didn't ever intend us to actually get to this planet or survive the trial. They expected us to be executed. So this whole thing, this whole escape attempt has just been a ruse to give them an excuse to get killed. And then no one cares. They went, oh, they escaped on the planet, and then they obviously froze to death. And he works it out as going, hey, you're super powerful because you're a shapeshifter. There is no way that you couldn't have done this yourself. So basically just lamps her on, and she just goes like, that's a fair cop. But I do quite like it. But then obviously we have a fight scene where what she does is she basically morphs into Kirk. She morphs into a double of Kirk, knocks McCoy out, and then we have the now kind of tropey, but maybe this was the first time it happened in cinema, but we basically get Kirk fighting himself and having witty banter between them. And then eventually the fight doesn't get resolved because the Klingon warden appears. So all of the monsters, the dogs, they all appear and they all go, ha ha ha, look, cool. It's all been a setup. We're going to kill you now. And then the warden shoots. Yeah, shoots the shapeshifter, shoots Marcia deliberately, I believe.
No, because he's like,
No,
oh, what took you so
Kill
long?
him, he's the one.
Not me, you idiot. Him! It just kills.
That's the thing, but then he kind of says oh, it's fine. Afterwards he's like, oh, well, they're going to die anyway.
Since you're all going to die anyway, because they want to know who is the conspirator, who is organizing all this. And
so Kirk
again,
asks him.
Yeah, it's a great, it's a cliche trope. And he's like, since you're all going to die anyway, why not tell you?
Yeah,
His
the guy
name is...
behind everything is, and then they get teleported out.
I love the fact that you couldn't have waited 2 seconds and Chekhov's like, you want to go back?
Then McCoy's just like, no,
no.
I forgot what McCoy said, but he's just like, I'm not going back.
But Scotty finds the discarded spacesuits in a vent in the briefing room. All the while, Spock is briefing Kirk that there's going to be a second peace conference and what has been going on. When Scotty eventually catches up, they conveniently meet at a bulkhead and they open it up and it's the two people's spacesuits that they had dead.
Who are conveniently dead now. So basically they thought, Scotty thought they had a lead, and then actually now it's another dead end because they're both dead. But this is my favorite bit of the whole film. No, my favorite ruse in the whole film is that what they do is because they find Burke and Sandal, I think?
Sandor, yeah.
Yeah. Because they find them dead, what they do is they put an announcement out to the ship saying, hey, look, they didn't actually die. They're now being questioned. So could we actually have, a lawyer equivalent, like a scribe or something, coming to sickbay to take their statements thing as bait? So basically, and then what we see is like a blackened sickbay. We see someone stepping into sickbay with a phaser. We see them walk up to the actual beds, ready to sort of take care of this loose end. And then they pull the cloth away, and it's Spock lying on the bed. And then we see that it's Valeris. It's Vulcan. Big reveal. Should have been a shock. Wasn't for me. And basically, and I love this. I love this so much. The ruse, but I love it. The fact of how angry Spock is. Where he is just so disappointed in her that he's just like, for fuck's sake, like he didn't want it to be true, but obviously Kirk took him aside earlier, being like, she's the only one. Like she is the only one. She's the only one who could have recorded my voice or whatever to get that evidence that was used in the trial. She's the only one who was like this. And yeah, and so it's quite good. And he basically just goes, "Look, you have to shoot me. Logically, you have to shoot me. If you're a proper Vulcan, you would shoot me simply because you can't allow me to live knowing this, and you
Yeah.
can't allow this." And then she doesn't. And this is the whole thing that disappoints me about the character. That like there isn't even an attempt. She is just not a very good Vulcan. And maybe it could have worked with it being Savick, but here,
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna ask David this, because if knowing now that it was supposed to be Savick, do you think that this scene alone and the subsequent scene as well would have been enhanced immeasurably, given the deep connection that the viewers have had with this? Because bearing in mind, like, this is not a few episodes. This is like 1982 to 1991. This is like 9 years that this character has been in Star Trek. Yeah. Do you think having that twist in the sick bay and then the subsequent bridge scene would have enhanced the movie immeasurably?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like in the Wrath of Khan, you see Savick crying at his funeral, right? So you see the emotional connection. Maybe that her crying breaks her and turns her into who she becomes, right? Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I'd agree. So unless they go and change canon and say, "Oh, she was a Romulan" or whatever they could do, right?
Yeah. It's the fact of like it would make me happier if she was a Romulan, because she's just not a very good Vulcan, but she hasn't been on that journey like Savick has to go, oh, and that's why she's not a very good Vulcan.
Yeah, so, yeah. I agree. I agree with both of you. I know this scene is considered by some a bit challenging. The bridge scene where they're interrogating her, where it's
incredibly wrong. Yeah. It's incredible. I would. This is horrible. Okay, and I know loads of people will probably not agree with me. This is my equivalent of In the Pale Moonlight, where you're just going, you did a fucking terrible thing for a very good reason.
Yes.
Because effectively, I'm not going to say the R word, but what Spock does is effectively
a mind.
And the fact that he pushes it so far that she starts having pain and she starts actually screaming, and you're just going, fucking hell. That is... He was willing to break the law, and do something so terrible to another person in order to actually for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I think it's the equivalent of possibly letting Garak murder a Romulan senator.
But we see, I mean,
in a ludicrously roundabout way.
But we already know, like, Chang is part of the conspiracy at this point.
Yeah.
But we get to find out that it's Chang, it's Cartwright, and it's the Romulan ambassador. But again, very much like Mark said, and very much like we've said, what is the motive for the Romulan ambassador to be there? What do you know what I mean? It's very... You could take that out completely and it wouldn't affect the movie. Or...
Is it just to suggest that all the races are involved in this conspiracy?
Yeah.
Is that the only reason they did it? Because someone would be like, oh, but the Romulans weren't involved.
Potentially. Or you could enhance it by, if we're not going to go down the Savick route, making Valaris a Romulan surgically altered to be a Vulcan, which we have seen. We have seen these Vulcan sleeper agents. We saw them in Enterprise.
Yeah.
At Romulus.
We saw it in TNG.
TNG.
Yeah.
So I think one of two ways: either remove the Romulan element altogether, or enhance it by having the the Romulan ambassador is conspiring with Valaris, who it turns out is also a Romulan and has been the whole time, thus making her betrayal of Spock's trust even greater.
I mean, that would be fucking... That would literally be a sort of shocked moment if it had been Savick and they revealed that after all we've gone through and all of
She
that,
was a
she's a
Romulan.
Romulan fucking spy.
Yeah.
That would
Missed
really be
opportunity.
big
Yeah,
ups to the Romulans, because like
Yeah.
this is the problem we have with the Romulans, where it's like I get so annoyed that they're not in Trek enough. Like they never got their Cardassians in DS9 moment. Like it felt like there should have been a show, which Enterprise was meant to be, which is basically going, here's the Romulans, bitches.
There
They
was
are
going
terrifying.
to be it was
Yeah.
the original
All we see is
plan.
little hints of going, look, it's the the what are they called? The Kel Shadar? The
Tal Shiar.
Tal
Tal
Shiar.
Shiar, yeah. We get like little glimpses of that, but it's kind of at the tail end of things, like it's the Tal Shiar hinted at as being ludicrously powerful, but then we never really get too much of it.
It's the Enterprise was getting to very much like DS9, where the later seasons would have been the Romulan War, and essentially what it would have been. I know they wanted to go 7 seasons, but ideally it should have been 2151 to 2161, and it ending with the formation of the Federation. But they never got to that, and it's a shame because a lot of people wanted, because we were literally on the cusp, as of season 4, on the cusp of all-out conflict with the Romulans. It was a few years away. So yeah, I think that would have enhanced this, but they find out that these are the conspirators. There is only one prototype cloaked bird of prey that can fire. They speak to Chekhov because they can't get the location from her. So they speak to Chekhov, who conveniently just knows. But he is too far away at the moment, so he needs to hightail it to Camp Kittimer, where the peace conference is being undertaken. And this is where the tension starts to ramp up, because there is this mad race to get to Camp Kittimer to stop another possible assassination of the Federation president, which could lead to all-out war, because they couldn't do it the way they did, so now they're trying to do the assassination of the president.
And it's also the idea of this is why they needed Kirk and McCoy dead, because as soon as this assassination attempt happens, they are vindicated. As soon as soon as this happens, they're like, oh shit, maybe it was a conspiracy. So it's just like, whereas if they just run, oh well, too late now, we already executed them. It's.
I love the little when they're hightailing it to Kittimer, and you get the little scene with Kirk and Spock, where they confront their not only their prejudices, their views, but their age as well. And Spock nails it on the head that have we become so old and so inflexible that we have outlived our usefulness? Would that constitute a joke? And it's telling, because these are, not to be ageist, they are old officers. They are institutionalized. They have gone through, you have to think their careers. If you look at Discovery, Strange New Worlds, the original series, blah, 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 they would have lived through a Klingon war. Their views of the Klingons would have been institutionalized because of these events. And now that the times are changing, they're having that realization, like, the times are changing, but are we actually capable of that change as well? Are we that flexible that we can adapt to a new world? And it's a great little like they acknowledge, especially Kirk, he acknowledges that he was prejudiced against the Klingons, and it could have cost everything. And I love it. I love it because it's sort of that realization that they are not over the hill, but it's time to move on. It's time to hang up the badge and let someone else have the adventures.
And this is the perfect send-off for Kirk, where, like we said, in the first movie, he wasn't ready for that yet. And now he's kind of going, actually, time to settle down. Time to give all of this up,
Yeah. So we see the battle scene between...
well, we have the conference starting. We're seeing that something's amiss, where there's obviously some kind of tension in the room there and stuff. But they're trying to get to the planet, and who's guarding the planet and stopping them actually getting to it? It's General Chang and his cloaked bird of prey that can still shoot.
I can see you, Kirk. Can you see me? I love it.
Be
Because
honest, Captain.
you ordered it. What did it this way? Yeah. Oh God, there's so many quotes of Shakespeare all the way through this, but it's brilliant because the Enterprise is literally defenseless. They can raise shields, but they don't know what to fire at because the bird of prey is cloaked, so they don't know it's there until a torpedo has hit them, and they get the absolute shit kicked out of them for a number of times. And Spock then goes, "Well, hang on a minute. At Impulse, they still expel gas." And I love the fact that Uhura, of all people, just goes, "Well, what about all that stuff we're carrying to catalogue gaseous anomalies? Well, the thing's got to have a tailpipe."
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, yeah, okay. So then,
Where's their favorites again?
yeah, and
Yes,
then you
David.
think, yes, but then you see Spock and McCoy working together, like.
Well, I
actually
love it though
working
that
together.
we get this thing like the fact of, obviously we joke about it, but McCoy and Spock are friends. They just have a very interesting relationship style.
Yeah.
But I love the idea that they all kind of group together, where it's Uhura that suggests, "Hey, we've got all this equipment for tracking gaseous anomalies," and then Spock and McCoy are like, "Hey, do you fancy doing some surgery on a torpedo, Doctor?" and then we see them sort of operating on a torpedo in like one of the what are they called, Jeffrey's tubes.
All the while at the conference, we see this Klingon stand up with a briefcase. And again, I've got questions about the security
It's
of
sus
this
as
conference.
fuck. Like, if you were at a
yeah.
conference and a guy just comes in with a briefcase and then walks out, and you just be like, he's got a gun. Like, I don't know who's checking these things.
Like, where are these metal detectors from? Because
Yeah,
I
who
have got
checked his
serious.
case? Why
Yeah.
didn't they not check his case?
Why did they not open it? Why did they not go, why is there a disassembled gun in your briefcase? But this Klingon with a briefcase makes his way to the upper level, very Flanders in that episode of The Simpsons where it's like, come by our Lord, and he's just like assembling his gun. All the while the Enterprise is getting like beaten and Shakespearean quotes are being fired at. "I am constant as the Northern Star," and McCoy's like, "I give real money if you shut up." But I mean, I love in the Star Trek movies up until this point, we didn't really get, apart from the Wrath of Khan, we didn't really get good space battles. This one where we actually see like the Enterprise, the hero ship, getting the absolute shit beaten out of him. And one of the screenshots that is down below is like when the torpedo just goes through the fucking ship, and it just makes this like. I'd love to see how they actually right there when it just goes straight through the ship.
Well, I love that we also get it where we actually see the room, the conference room where the dinner was shown, gets blown up by it. And this metaphor of basically going, "Hey, look, that what was built in that room earlier by that awkward dinner scene is just destroyed. Like it's destroyed by this battle and by this animosity." It's a lovely little picture.
And even with the Excelsior, like when the Excelsior arrives, and then the Excelsior takes a massive punching as well, because again, they can't fire at something that they can't see. But I love the fact that when they get this, when they finally get the torpedoes sorted, like, "Where's the hell my torpedo?" And McCoy's just like, "Ready, Jim, lock and load." And you just see Kirk just like, "Fire." And I love that because he's like, "I got you, you prick." And he's just like, "Fire." And you just see, like, you see Chang and the whole crew just stand up because they know that torpedo is after them.
Well, because we see the torpedo launch, and then it, rather than going in a straight line, it veers off, and then we go, "Oh shit! It's a homing. It's now homing in on the gas."
Yeah, and the best thing for sure, to be or not, to be. Boom, and they just.
And it's the arrogance, it's the sheer arrogance of they made a bird of prey that could cloak and still fire while cloaked, but they didn't make it so it could have shields up. So it's kind of like going, okay, right.
I can see you, Kirk. Can you see me?
Anyway, go on.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Go on.
Yeah. But no, that scene is wonderful. And then we get the typical thing of literally it's a direct hit on the bridge, which it probably wouldn't be, but basically they have no shields, the bridge blows up, And then as soon as that happens, we see
It's
Sulu
just a
and we see Kirk
double
being like,
team.
yeah, literally fire upon that explosion. And we get a couple of shots and then it all explodes. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
But the tension is not over because there is still a possible assassination attempt on the Federation president. So they have no time to celebrate because they need to get down to Camp Kidderman ASAP. And we just see, like, again, this plays into like the old American movies about assassination, like foiling an assassination attempt and the tension building up, and you see like where like they're fighting through the crowds and you just see Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President, and just like this stunt double of Shatner starfishing into the air. And you know, looking at the beam of phaser, that no matter what that like Kirk did, it was going to miss because it went through the armpit of Kirkwood Smith. So it's just like, Mr. President! And it's just like, you didn't need to do that. He missed. But with it being Jimmy Doohan, like, would it be Scotty just like making the fatal blow?
I like that it's Scotty. I like it.
Yeah,
me
Basically, like, so we get it where the shot goes awry because Kirk jumps in the way of it and the assassin fucks up.
Yeah.
And then basically in the next couple of seconds, we basically have Scotty appear behind the assassin and just blast him out the bloody sky.
Did you get the reveal of who that was?
No.
What? Oh!
What?
Oof.
That is not a Klingon.
Is it not?
That is not a Klingon. That is Colonel West, Rene Auberjonois, pretending to be a Klingon. It's a rubber mask.
Wow.
So he gets shot out. He gets shot out the window. He lands. The crowd gathers, and you see the CNC of Starfleet and Colonel Worf together. And what they do, they look on the ground, and obviously he's landed on concrete, and they go, "There's blood coming out of the head," and they go, "That's not Klingon blood, because it's red." And then they see that
wasn't in my scene.
No,
that
this
wasn't
is
in
what
my
annoys
film.
me. Get the director's cut, please.
Yeah.
But there's like a tear, and they pull off the mask, and there is Colonel West. So Colonel West was
He's just a dead
pretending-
Klingon in the
Yeah.
one I saw. Sorry.
Colonel West was pretending to be a Klingon to assassinate the Federation president. So they could blame the Klingons for killing the president of the Federation. But it was
Why is that
Colonel
not
West.
in for the
I
10
don't
seconds it
know.
would have been? Why did they
It's
not
so
put that in
good.
the film?
It is so good. And like I only saw that when I got the director's edition like 20 years ago. And I sat down and I was like, these scenes, like the torpedo tube and this, these scenes have forever changed the way I view these this movie, because it enhances that, oh shit, it wasn't actually a Klingon killing a president. It was actually like a false flag where the Federation did a thing and blamed another nation for that thing. And you're thinking, oh my God, like, was it cut out because they may have been worried that during the theatrical release where they're just like, whoa, hang on, we can't have the Federation doing sussy Federation things like killing the president. Ha ha ha, JFK, anybody?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Ooh. Well, false flags don't exist. No,
It was the Klingon on the
no.
grassy knoll. I'm glad I blew your mind with that. But
No, I genuinely didn't know that at all. That's amazing, and it's annoying that it's not in the film.
yeah, and we see like Cartwright being arrested and Spock like, arrest those men, and Spock's just like, arrest yourself, pulling Valeris by the arm. But
Yeah, and then Cartwright sees her and immediately knows the jig is up. Immediately knows, oh shit, they know everything.
And as a bird demanding to know what's going on, and Kirk just coming out with this, it's about what did he say it was about?
It's what is it? The line I really
future.
like. Some people
Yeah,
think
it's
the
about the
future
future.
means an end of all history.
Yes.
And it is, and it's that him growing over the course of the film. And my problem with Kirk being that he never fucking grows. In the original series, he literally starts off and he ends the way he started. And I love that the films change Kirk and go, the progress he makes over these 6 films is far greater than he did in 3 fucking seasons of the original series.
Agreed. Yeah, I absolutely agreed. And he references her father saying, the future, he called the future the undiscovered country. and people can be frightened of change.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that she goes, "You have restored my father's faith," and he just turns to her and he goes, "You have restored my son's."
See, I don't get the line. I don't get what he means by that. And I was like,
Because his son was murdered by a Klingon.
yeah.
That's
But isn't
that's
it,
what I took away
isn't
from
it his faith that she's restored in Klingons?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like why would it be her son's faith? I don't know, because did he not trust Klingons? It's never really explored. I don't know, but the line confused me basically.
Yeah.
But I think they just wanted to mention David again.
The the epilogue. The epilogue. The two ships riding off into the sunset. We see Sulu going off on his own adventures, where people started
Where's
going,
this seventh film, you fuckers? But it didn't happen. It would have been great as a spin-off.
Hang on, don't we need a Sulu film or TV series, which was then enhanced in '96 with his Voyager cameo. But we see the crew of the Enterprise being ordered back to space dock for decommissioning. What did Mark say? My son's faith in the shiftiness of military men. Oh my. Or shittiness.
The shittiness.
Okay.
There we go.
No, that's fine. That's better. But we see that they are ordered to be put back to space dock to be decommissioned. And Spock. I mean, this is referenced again in Data in a subsequent Star Trek film. I believe it's First Contact, but where Spock's like, "If I was human, I believe my answer would be go to hell." If I were human. But Kirk, being the Boy Scout, quotes Peter Pan.
Yeah.
As his
he
last
basically
order.
just goes, "Hey, let's not do that. Let's go on another adventure," and quotes Peter Pan with the destination.
Second star to the right and straight on till morning. And then we get a nice, lovely little captain's log to end the movie, where it is essentially the torch passing of the original series crew to the Next Generation crew. Because this is 1991. The Next Generation is 3 to 4 seasons. I think this was season 4 when this was aired, because this is where unification took place as well. So Spock was a busy boy. But we see, his captain's log. I'm going to have to read it. Captain's log, stardate 9529.1 or 9529.1. This is the final cruise of the Starship Enterprise under my command. This ship and her history will shortly become the care of another crew. To them and their posterity we will commit our future. They will continue the voyages we have begun and journey to all those undiscovered countries, boldly going where no man, where no one has gone before. The reason why they did that, because the original series, no man, Next Generation, no one. And that's it.
It was beautiful.
That was the Undiscovered Country, the final mission of the original series crew. Yeah. And what I have to ask this in every review, and I'm going to start with David first. Do you have anything else to take away from this movie?
Just the end of an era, right?
Yeah, I would say so. This, if you were going to end a generation, I think this is possibly the best way they could have done it. There is no deaths. There is of any of the crew,
of any characters we care about.
Yeah, red shirts don't care, but it's just riding off into the sunset, and not quite ready yet, but we will ride off into the sunset one final time. Synoiz, come at me with these thick notes.
I know. It's an odd one. I'm not going to tell you my additional things because obviously there's loads of stuff. I'm going to say, actually, this wasn't my favorite. This literally, I'm going to say, after watching this, I still think that 4 is my favorite. The one with the whales. I still think that's the most well-rounded one that we got. And I still love 5. For how silly it was an enjoyable romp.
5 holds up,
Yeah.
I love 5.
This one, my criticisms of this one are things that are going to get me in trouble with you guys and all Trek fans, is the fact of I didn't like Valeris.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for me, and I didn't like Chang. I felt Chang. I hated it. Like the problem was, all I could see Christopher Plummer doing is Captain Hook from like the whole thing, like literally when he's in the final battle at the end where he's spinning around on the chair when he's doing the Shakespeare quotes, I was just like, he's too campy to be threatening, and it kind of sabotaged all of the work that it did earlier in the film. And for that to be the memorable quotes, like that to be the bits of the film that everyone takes away, I was a bit like, it was too Doctor Who for me. And I just feel a bit annoyed that I'm like, we've had two films without villains effectively that have worked really well. And then we finally get a villain character in this. And I'm just not sold on them. And it's a bit of a shame. Even the makeup, even the him being bald is a bit. And I'm annoyed. I kind of think maybe someone else could have done Chang better. And that I know that's massively controversial because he is absolutely loved as a Star Trek villain.
You
Same
are
with
entitled
Christopher
to your
Lloyd,
opinion.
actually. I'm still not sold on Christopher Lloyd in 3, you know?
You are entitled to your opinion. However,
Yeah.
I must point out, cry havoc and let's slip the dogs of war.
You know this thing, I can look at the scene and go, I love this, but in the context of the film, I was like, I'm not feeling this, and I'm sorry. But it's the fact of it's still what I will say, the score. This is my favorite soundtrack across all of the films. It is insane. Like the thing I've complained about consistently in all of our like film reviews is the opening fucking crawl where it's only 5 that did it properly, where it went show a couple of names and then get into the film. Don't do a whole we've got to show everything where it's just space background with some words appearing. And then this one basically doesn't, it kind of does all the credits, but the music, something about how wonderful the score is, basically makes it bearable, like makes it kind of
all the way through as well. For every credit, the color changes slightly, and
it's
changes
so good.
all the way.
It basically goes, hey, we're doing this, but we're gonna do it, you know, in a good way. And I really enjoyed it. And yeah, the sound, man, like it's just like it's better than all of the other films, I feel. And I don't know if that's a controversial opinion, but it's the fact of the darker tone of this film, the darker soundtrack for this film works really well. And I thought I would be complaining about it because of like, you know, the Into Darkness, like, you know, the sort of Kelvin timeline films where I'm a bit like, oh, they've made it a bit dark and it's a bit weird and edgy and stuff. And I'm like, this film does it, but you don't notice because it does it so well. It does it so seamlessly.
It does it.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask you a question, Graham? Then you said you don't like General Chang. Would you change him for a con version of General? Like, would you keep all the Shakespeare and stuff like that, but put a different actor, or would you rather have a con version of General Chang, where he's not quoting Shakespeare and stuff like that?
I'm gonna be horrible. I think a recast would have worked. I think the idea of him like quoting Shakespeare, but doing it in a cruel way, as in he's almost mocking the human culture. That's how I would do it. I would have him quoting Shakespeare, but in a kind of like a sort of how pathetic your culture is. Like, you know, this is the best literature you've got kind of thing. Klingons are far superior to this. The same way that the Romulans and the Cardassians are, where their culture, their stuff is way better than anything their enemies have got. That's probably how I would have done it. And I would have had this as him mocking them, but in a savage way rather than in a pantomime villain way, which now I've said it, that's horrible. Okay, come at me, haters, come at me, Chang lovers. But I enjoyed it, but in the context of the film,
you are entitled to your opinion, and we will never judge you for your opinion, unless it's saying Babylon 5 is good, and then you're fired. I absolutely, it is one of my favorite Star Trek movies. I love, as I have said at the beginning of this many days ago of this episode, it is Nick Meyer at his very best, and the inspiration that season 3 of Picard took. They took all the key elements of this movie and just put them in the series and just made them work, even going to a point where they took sound effects directly from the movie and implemented them. I just think this is how Star Trek and Starfleet looks. If you're going to do it on a big picture, this is how it should look. It should look claustrophobic. It should look militaristic, because Starfleet is a military. Yes, they do scientific and stuff like that. And yes, this is a time where they don't have families on board, so they don't need, and space is a premium. But this is just like, if you're going to do a show in this era like this, this is how it should be. And that's sort of why I get detached a little bit with Strange New Worlds, where you're just like, the Enterprise looks huge, but it's the same size as this Enterprise. And it's got fireplaces and a chaise longue and wood paneling. And then you just look at this and you go, this is how really it should be. And they very cleverly because obviously they had a very limited budget, so they redressed a lot of the Enterprise D and not chromed it, but gave it a metal look and gave it a more older, worn look that sort of symbolized it's not just the crew that are old, it's also this ship. Because I mean, this is like this ship is like the Yorktown rechristened. So this, like the other Enterprise, these are like 50 years old. So they are at the end of their, as Spock and Kirk compared, they are at the end of their usefulness. And Mark, what are you saying? You're not entitled to your terrible opinion. Best Trek movie ever made, full stop. Hang on.
Come at me, bro.
Hang on. Hold up. It's better than Star Trek 5. So,
Five was fun.
Yeah. So for me,
5 is silly. Like, and I think that's the thing. It's when you lean into comedy, you do it. Yeah, it's that thing of going, okay, it's a farcical movie. I can buy into this, and it does it really well.
Yeah.
Whereas if they were like having jokes like they do in 5 in a movie with this level of seriousness, it wouldn't have worked and it wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah.
They knew it was a comedy when they were making it.
I think that is a good place to cease our review of the Undiscovered Country, because we could probably talk for a lot longer than what we have. And I am looking at that counter, and the counter's going, dude.
Did we surpass our...
This is the longest episode ever.
This is the longest episode ever.
It's always us.
Oh, yes. But seriously, though, great movie. I highly recommend it. It is, if you don't even have to watch the other Star Treks to sort of get it. There is exposition throughout. But no, I love it. I'm looking forward to reviewing Generations next month, so I don't have 2 movies in the same month. Damn you, Nigel Hemorrhage. But
are we going to be in Vegas when we have to do Generations?
Shit.
Is that how it falls?
Shit.
Ooh.
No,
Shit.
I don't think it is.
No, it's the 26th of July for Star Trek Generations. Right.
But that's
anyway.
Destination Trek, so it's the day before Destination...
No, Destination Trek's the 28th. That's
No, but it's the episode before...
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah. God, don't make me panic. Anyway, speaking of panicking, and I may need to do some technical mumbo-jumbo, we have an incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
Welcome, everybody. Oh, actually, that's fine. That'll do. Welcome, everybody, to the double wheel of episodes. Everyone looks out of position, but I'm too tired to care. For those just joining us for the first time on Trekking Up North, firstly, welcome. Secondly, 2 hours, 53 minutes, 50 seconds. Well done. Thirdly,
if you have stayed with us, comment in the chat.
Shout out
who has been here from the start? Because wow, you need a medal.
You need a medal. Star Trek 5 is not a movie; it's a lifestyle. Okay, Mark, you drill holes in the desert and come back to me on that one. Welcome to the double wheel of episodes. For those just joining us, I love this so much. It gives me so much anxiety. Every week, me and Science Officer Synoiz spin the double wheel of episodes, and whatever it lands on, we must review the following week. And as ever, I'm going to avoid Synoiz this week because we've got a very special guest.
David,
I'm
you
going
need
to ask
say it.
David.
You need to say
No,
it. You need
no,
to say
don't,
what
no.
episode we want, David.
I will mute you, boy. I will mute you. David.
A certain episode of TNG, yeah.
Another episode of TNG. Oh, God.
A certain episode of TNG.
In all seriousness, though, hi, everybody. Have I missed it? Sammy, it's been 3 hours. You've missed it all. Have
Still going?
I've lost all feeling in my lower body.
You have a lower
I
body.
mean, you don't need that. Your top half is too pretty in it. Enough.
David, what do you hope for us to review next week? And if you say Code of Honor, I will fly to nice France and I will hurt you. So...
obviously personal bias. I would say Under the Cloak of War. Of course, for a personal bias. Gambit.
Oh, that would actually be a good one.
one.
Yeah, that would actually be a good one. Okay, so we've got Gambit. Synoiz. Just say it. Just say it so I can get it over with. Yeah, okay, we know what it is. Anyway, rule of thumb. Dad said instead of a medal, can he have a shirt? Can he have a t-shirt? What do you want about Mother? Leave me. What?
Mother? Hello, Mummy Goodwill.
Yes, hello, Mother. Hello. I'm still alive, but barely breathing. I'm hoping... I don't have it with me. It seems to have been burnt in a rage. I'm hoping for an Enterprise episode, a Season 4 Enterprise episode. I am still hoping for the Augment. What are the Augment episodes?
Ooh,
Because,
good choice. Good choice.
I love them. I absolutely love
Well,
them.
the likelihood of us getting Enterprise is pretty high because we currently have TNG taken out of this. So TNG isn't in the Dabo wheel still.
Damn it.
We're having a month without TNG simply
either
because
that-
we've had so many lately. But
Either that or when we did the test the other week, Tears of the Prophets.
yeah,
Great episode.
oh, it's really annoying. We tested it and we landed on a perfect episode, and we're like, damn it! But they all equally have a chance to appear, so technically it could happen again.
The rule of thumb, everybody watching and everybody in the live chat and everybody who is around me at the moment. When the Dabo wheel lands, we all have to yell at the top of our lungs, Dabo!
Dabo!
You have to comment Dabo. You have to put in a live chat Dabo. You have to send me voice notes saying Dabo. You have to open your windows for all to see and yell Dabo in the
Go to a
street.
charity shop, buy a fax machine, somehow work out how to set it up in the next 20 seconds, and then fax everyone with Dabo.
Harness the
Bastards.
power of the messaging pigeon and write on a post-it note Dabo and throw it. out
Teach
of an
your
open
dog
window.
calligraphy. Get it to write Dabo.
Make your hamster learn English so you can say the words Dabo. It is the rule. Are we ready, everybody, for me to spin
We can do this.
the wheel?
Let's do it.
Come on.
In 3, 2, 1, begin the instant anxiety.
It's gonna. Oh, please let it appear.
Maybe you'll get regeneration.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a
Star
DS9
Trek.
one. I know this one.
DS9, Deep Space Nine.
I'm willing to say the first
Devil.
good episode of DS9. It's literally like episode 6. It's when it basically finds its way.
Why is
I'd
that
say.
not coming up? Why is that not coming up?
Babel.
Which one is
Yeah,
Babel?
there we go.
Babel. It's basically the episode where a virus gets unleashed upon the ship that basically makes everyone unable to understand each other. So it causes a dissonance between what they hear and their brain's relation to words. So they
Oh,
basically
yes.
see like how crazy it is when no one can understand each other, and then
Yeah. Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 5.
Hey, I got it.
Babel.
Yay.
A virus infects the station's residents, making almost everyone unable to speak coherently.
So it's basically Middlesbrough.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, they got more teeth and wash. However, my father has watched the whole show. Dad, go to bed. we are going back to DS9.
Well done, Goodwills. Well done
Yeah.
for surviving this.
Well
I
done,
haven't,
fella.
and I've been on it.
Computer, take us back to the 3-person screen. Oh, technology.
Menage a trois.
Menage a trois.
That's your usual French, that is. Yeah,
Menage
that's your actual French.
Menage a mouse click.
Menage it.
So
You
yeah.
got any of that menage a trois?
So
Cross.
that is next week's episode of Trekking Up North, Season 1, Episode 5 of DS9, Babel. I would personally like to thank David for not only agreeing to come on to tonight's show, but staying for the whole 3 hours and 18 seconds of it.
You've killed me again.
Losing the ability to stand. He's missed 4 acting jobs during this episode. Paramount have been phoning him going, "Where are you?" It has been yet again an honour and a privilege to have you on, sir. You will be coming back again in 2 months' time to review First Contact. And boy, if you think this was a long episode, you ain't seen nothing yet. You have not seen anything yet.
Welcome
First
back
Contact,
to Trek Endurance.
First Contact is my baby, and I love it. Synoiz, are you doing anything after this?
No.
Good.
I was going to, but I've got to get up at 9 a.m. tomorrow to get into drag for Sunderland Pride. So, yeah, sorry everyone. I was going to do streaming. It'll have to wait until whenever I get time. But yeah.
I am going to be honest with you guys. The t-shirt underneath this very hot velour jacket is no longer a t-shirt. It is a sponge.
Why do you think I changed mine when I was off camera?
Yeah, that's it.
I had the power
tried.
of Queen. I had the power of Queen holding me up, and the Queen t-shirt has gone, "Michael, I cannot do it anymore, son. It's falling apart." I am so hot. Synoiz, thank you so much, as always, for being here. The sexiest Geesian from the planet Honk. I
just want to say thank you to Amy McGuinness in the chat for taking the Stockton hate.
You are from Stockton, you cheeky git. Amy, I am from Redcar. So, I'm waiting
No
for
one's perfect.
No one's perfect. However, I've got all my teeth and a university degree, so I am a god. I would like to thank everybody who has stayed with us in the live chat. You are the true heroes. Amy, David Hope, Beth, how much stimulants have you received? Sammy, who have we got? Nerdy Up North, Paul, we've got Crimson, all the favourites. Some dude called Cartier, Mr. Cartier.
It sounds like a wine. I don't.
The delicious Minnesotan. From Les Shuttle Patrol, and now the search for Trek. Thank you to everybody. Did you like this episode?
It's going to be behind the sofa cushions. Have you checked there yet?
No, because I don't have a sofa. I do, but
I found
yeah, I found Trek. Better accents down there than where? Redcar? No. If you like this video, please give us a like. If you are not a subscriber to the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel, please click that subscribe button, please, because we want to do this as a full-time job and we can't on £20 a month. Yes, Trekking Up North t-shirts. If you want a Trekking Up North t-shirt, please let me know and I will arrange something. If you are going to Destination Trek, we may be running a competition to win one. But you have to be there to attend to get one. Everything that Nerdy Up North does is in the description below. Please, every social media page that you have, come and follow us, Nerdy Up North. Come and like Nerdy Up North. Subscribe. Be part of the amazing Facebook community. If you like what we do, we have got amazing friends that also do a lot of nerdy content. We have got Trek Culture, Clone Star Podcast, who this week interviewed Adam Nimoy, Lennon Nimoy's son, which is an outstanding achievement for Mike and Joseph. So really well done, lads. really top of the bar. We've got the Shuttle Pod Show down there. We've got Captain's Quadrant. So, Joe, you are there, my Joe, my darling Joe. Everyone else, we've got JL Saw You. We've got someone called the Velvet Snatch. Please donate.
Is
Please
that how
donate.
Moira Rose would say it? The Velvet
Yes.
Snatch.
How Fred West would say it, we don't know. What would he do? Comment below. We've got the Velvet Snatch /donate to contribute to everything that our lovely science officer Synoiz is doing.
Yeah.
If you want Nina to have a parachute when she jumps out of a plane, please go to her GoFundMe below and donate, because bless her little cotton socks, we don't want her to become a splatter. We want her to land with the grace of a dainty butterfly. So please donate to Nina's cause to jump out of a plane. Why is she jumping out of a plane? Yes. Other than that, gentlemen, is there anything else you would like to add before we bid this fine audience adieu?
David?
It's been a pleasure, guys. I love doing these shows with you, and I can't wait till we do First Contact again.
Oh, you will be coming back. You have no choice. It's contractually obligated. Right then.
I just want to say, if you are in Sunderland or the Northeast tomorrow, please come along to our nerdy quiz. The first one that we're doing, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Geek Retreat in Sunderland, £2 entry per person. It should be a lot of fun, but this is something that we want to do. We want to build this up, and we want to do these monthly in order to raise money for good causes. So it'd be great if we got a good turnout for the first one. See you there.
Fantastic. Okay, my lovelies, that has been Trekking Up North for this week. We will see you next week. But as ever on Trekking Up North, stay safe, live long and prosper, and...
Fire!
Miles?
Fire!
Miles? Miles!